everybody. Welcome back to Myammee TV. Today, you guys, I have a lovely group of women that we share something in common, something that touches us so closely to our souls, our hearts, our lives. And today we're going to have a great conversation about us losing our mothers, being grown, and not having our mothers with us, and just so many other things that we're going to talk about. And I hope you guys learn something from this. And we're just going to go ahead and jump into the conversation, and we're going to go with introductions. So ladies, go ahead and introduce yourself one by one, and we'll jump into the conversation.
My name is Stephanie. I lost my mom to lung cancer in August of 2015. Her name was Beverly. She was my everything. Single mom, super strong, West Indian born and bred. And life has changed a lot since, losing her and not having her presence, especially as a young adult woman. But I steadily just try to be as prolific as she was in her words and her deeds, in the way that she handled people, in the way that she cared for people. And that's it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Keara. I lost my mom, Bobby, in October of 2008. My mom was my best friend, probably something I realized after she passed away. A woman of poise, confidence, and a woman that was very sure of her beliefs and her values. And that's something that I believe that I'm carrying on in the legacy that I want to leave. So just making her and my father proud, but just to carry on what she symbolized to her friends and her family.
That's amazing.
My name is Jonique. I lost my mom, Deborah, October 29th, 2019, to cancer. My mom to me was a fighter. She went through 3 stints of cancer. The first one starting off 20 years ago. And initially they gave her 6 months to live on that first round of cancer. So her faith, that's one thing that I definitely took from her. When she had the faith and what she talked about and what she stood for, and how she spoke about God, I think that's what pulled her another 20 years. You know, when the doctor said, you have 6 months, and 20 years later, she was still here. It was that faith that she had that he is the one in control. And so outside of being a mother and a grandmother and a great friend, the fight is definitely something that she put into me. But her faith in God definitely is another one. So.
Oh, that's so good. Come on with the faith now. So you guys, my mom passed away May 2008, and she had been battling, living with and trying to just live with HIV. And HIV kind of came in 89, 86, 87, it's one of those years. She doesn't know exactly the year. We all don't know the exact year, but it has to add up around my brothers, my twin brothers that we lost to HIV complications. It had to be around the time she got pregnant with them, so it could be 87, right? So she didn't know until 89. And that has just been a journey period up until her death in 2008. I'll just say it, being a guinea pig for HIV treatment and trying to try new things that came up to be better for people today. So 2008, the things they have now available, those people in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s actually helped pave the way for people to have the one pill today, or to have just better treatment today. So while she was in the hospital battling this new liver cancer and having to take chemo, she was still having to fight for her immune system, which is HIV. And doing all of that chemo, something happened within like a week where her kidney starting to fail. So then she got on dialysis. So trying to get on dialysis, doing chemo and still making sure her HIV treatment was working in the hospital. Everything just didn't work well. So I say all that to say, because my mom was also a fighter. She was a fighter not only for herself and for me, after we lost my brothers, she was a fighter for the community. My mom was a big, huge HIV advocate. Like, that is something that I'm doing now. And she did it on a whole different level. Like, she was national with this thing. Like, she used to go and talk to the pharmaceuticals, talk to the government, let them know, like, this is how we feel as Black women who are, falling in love with these men who are not gay, supposedly, or out as gay. And that's when they started to realize a lot of things about heterosexual men on the down low and like all that stuff. So she had been doing HIV advocacy for so long. She worked with adolescents. She worked with so many women, and I want to do the same thing. I want to continue being how my mom was to be. Doesn't matter how I sound, how I come off. It does not matter. Whatever it takes to get the word out, I will say it. She was so bold. The way she spoke, she didn't care what nobody thought of her. It was who she was. And I make sure I possess that and carry that in my life now. Like, I want to be just as bold as my mom. I want to be just as giving and give back to the community and educate as much as I can, not just in HIV, but other things too, like my faith, you know what I mean? And like God and like so many other things. So my mom was a rock star and is in me, you know what I mean? So shout out to Anna Wyman, honey. And so yeah, that's her. That's her. All right, ladies. So we're gonna talk about that day, the day that we found out she passed away. That day, and then after that day of the blurs that you may have had, the feelings of that day, and also up until the funeral.
So I was in Florida. My mom was living there. My sister was in New York, and I was in DC. But when we kind of knew about a week before that she was making a turn for the worse, or that was kind of what was somewhat shared with us, because they didn't really know. And like, there wasn't a time where the doctors ever said, okay, like, she has 4 days or anything like that. You know, it's one of those type of situations where you kind of get there and they're like, you know, we're just concerning ourselves with comfort at this point. And so it was a Saturday morning. My sister and I, it was so interesting because we were rotating with family, you know, coming to visit her. At that time, like, she was in the hospital. She never went to hospice or anything like that. They had her more so like what they call, I think, a more conducive and more modern term for it is palliative care. But it's similar to hospice, and sometimes it's in the hospital. So she was just on a regular floor in the hospital, and a couple of nights, like probably 2 to 3 prior to this, my sister and I were staying downtown at a close hotel so that we could be a little bit closer just in case we needed to get to her faster. And for some reason on the Friday night, my sister was like, I don't think we should stay. And I call it the spirit, you know, I'm a believer. And so I was like, okay. So we told my aunt, you know, you can stay in the hotel tonight. We're going to stay at the hospital. And we slept with her, slept in the room, you know, if you've ever done it, sleeping in a hotel room is not glamorous. But it was more so about like being in the spirit and in her presence. She was sleeping, you know, breathing, you know, labored, but still there, opening her eyes every now and again. And I made sure to set the mood by making sure that worship was like heavy in there. So I had on the TV they had, I was able to, I feel like, connect to possibly like, I don't know at the time, whatever kind of music streaming I had. And I was playing a song that is still very like, it's a heavy song to listen to when I hear it to this day. But at the time, literally as she transitioned, which we didn't know was happening, we had a really, really nice young Black nurse. And she came in a room and she checked on my mom that morning. I think it was about maybe 7:15, and she was just like, hey, can I talk to you ladies in the hallway for a second? So we stepped out. She was like, I think that, you know, your mom is starting to transition. And I just took a walk down the hallway.
Wow.
Took deep breaths, kind of like, okay, this is really happening, you know, but you gotta like pull it together because you don't know like how quickly this is going on. We went back in the room. Oh, and one thing I forgot to add is that my cousin was there with us. And the crazy thing is, when we walked in, she didn't know what the nurse had told us, but she was at the head of my mom's bed, and she looked at us and she was like, something is telling me that I need to pray for her. And I have never in my life seen my cousin pray, ever. So she was at her head and she was speaking to her. She was like, I just want you to know, you know, Auntie, that you're good and you don't have to worry, and that God is with you and you can rest. And literally at that moment with my sister on one side and myself on the other, the song by Donald Lawrence, When the Saints Go to Worship, was playing, and she took her last breath, and it was the most peaceful thing that I've ever witnessed. And of course sad, but the peace that came in that moment, it has literally carried me through. And to the point where, you know, there wasn't a lot of like feelings of being distraught, you know, because when you're a believer, you know there is something to rest and no more pain. And so I'm grateful, you know, because I know that some people don't have that opportunity to be there, and it might not be as peaceful of the situation, but blessed to be able to have been in her presence and that God was in the presence. So that's my story.
Gosh, guys, all crying.
Yeah.
I will be a little far into it before this.
No, this is beautiful, man. This is beautiful.
Listen, this is why I didn't even attempt to do any like lotion, because I don't. Okay. In August of 2008, I actually moved to Michigan for law school, which is a conversation that I had amongst my family and my mom, you know, knowing that she was sick and she was going through treatments. And she told me, you are still going to go to school. So I moved to Michigan, August 2008. Going through school, still speaking to my mom multiple times during the day. And in October, late September rather, she started to take a turn, but we were still speaking. And one day my older sister called and she was just like, you know, I think you should come home. So that was probably about a Tuesday. I was home on that Thursday, and I went straight from the airport to the hospital, and I was there, and my mom transitioned the day that I got there. I think about if I didn't go away, if that would have made me feel better, or if that would have gave me a little bit more peace. But in hindsight, I realized that, just like I said, I want to carry on her legacy, who she was, what she epitomized. And I would say that me still continuing to go to school was something that made her proud. So she transitioned on that day, and I stayed, and I went to her funeral in law school. There are 2 exams, a midterm and a final. That's what your grade is based on. I forfeited my midterms so I could be there for a funeral. And after everything was over, I went back to Michigan to school. Definitely her strength, my support system, but her strength and what she stood for carried me through. God, of course. But the days, as you talk about, a blur. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, how did you do that? when you realize other people's stories and when you think of the magnitude of actually losing a mother. How did you do that? So I'm grateful. It's important to me, like I said, to carry on who she was, but in my own personal way. You know, she was an educated woman, master's degree, community giving, church going, faith, God fearing, all of those things. So in my own way, I choose to continue to carry that on. And I feel like I did, going back to school, completing a degree, you know, still giving back to my community. So I say that all to say, even though I may not have been there the couple of months right before the transition, I do believe that my mom is proud. And I do have peace in knowing that I am continuing on her legacy.
So I've always been the protector of my mom. And the last time that we found out she had cancer, she lived with me. That last year, she was fighting. Like I said, she was a fighter. So, you know, we'll try one treatment, that treatment didn't work. All right, let's try another one. What's next?
Yep.
You know, so we did tests, you know, we did the studies and stuff like that. We did those. And the crazy part about it is I travel for work a lot. And so by the grace of God, my job last year, they kind of switched some stuff around. So I was able to work locally or just work in the office. So I was able to take her to her treatments, or I was able to take her to the doctor or whatever. So summertime of last year, things just started progressively getting, you know, we're going to the hospital a little bit more, you know, there's more doctor visits and things like that. And I remember getting a call. I was in the office and I knew she had been bleeding a lot, and she had a doctor's appointment that day. And they say, you know, you need to go to the hospital for this. She was already there, but the emergency room was across the street. You need to go to the emergency room and get this checked out. So she had told me that and said, okay, well, let me know how it goes. And so I'm at the office and she calls me and she's crying hysterically. And I've never heard my mom break down like that. She's like always tough, always like, okay, what's next? You know, and she's just crying. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, you know, they said that it's gone through my liver, it's spread and it's this and that. And, you know, she's just crying. I'm like, okay, well, I'm coming. And so I grab everything, and my boss, he knew, you know, what had been going on because his father had cancer and he was the one taking care of his father and stuff like that. And so he was out in the hallway and he sees me and he just sees the look on my face. And he was like, is it mom? I'm like, yeah. And I just broke down hysterically. Because all this time I'm just like, I think her breaking down kind of like put things in perspective. Because you always look at your parents as,
yeah,
they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, we've been through this before, and this was like the first time, you know, from the rest of the times, it's like, okay, she gonna get through this. It's good. We got this. But this time it was like something different. And so, you know, so I'm breaking down and, you know, I get to the hospital and, you know, the doctor's telling me like the tumor had just grew so big that it started to press on her bladder. It was going through the walls of her bladder. And so from there, it was like, okay, that was in August. And the crazy thing about it is you would look at my mother, you would never know anything was wrong with her. Because she didn't want to put on the pity party, you know? And I think that was something that made her survive as long as she did, because, you know, your mentality of it, you know, if you give in, you know, that's when people go quicker. But you know, if you play the part, the woe is me is, oh, I have this, you know, then yeah, your mind is gonna go with it. She never did that. So she started getting a little better. We started her new treatment, and her birthday was coming up. Her birthday was October 18th. And so she was turning 59. And, you know, she was saying, oh, you know, for my 60th, I'm going to have a big party. And I said, well, let's just have it this year. You know, let's not wait to 60. Let's just celebrate it this year. And so her birthday was on the 18th. I was supposed to be at homecoming the 18th. So I said, let's have it a week early, you know? So we had this huge party, and, you know, have video of her. She's up dancing. Like, you will not know that anything was wrong with her. 2 days after the party, she got admitted into the hospital. That was a Monday. October 18th, which was her birthday, was that Friday. And, you know, I'm going to the hospital every day, of course. You know, she was over it. She was ready to get out. She was like, I'm ready to leave. A doctor came in and said, we think we have a treatment where we can shrink your tumor. So we're going to start it next week. So it was, you know, we all had these plans. We were ready. Okay. Monday morning, I get a call. My brother, who's in the military, he came home. Thank God, because he's in Germany. He came home and he was like, you know, I'm gonna go to the hospital, see Ma today. Okay, great. I'm gonna go to the office. I talked to her that morning. I was like, how you doing? She was like, oh, I'm good. You know, I got up. I was a little out of breath, but I'm okay. I said, okay, well, Gregory will be there, you know, check on you. I'll be there later on today when I get off of work. I was like, you know, call me if you have any issues. And I go to work, and she calls me while I'm at work, and she's like, I'm having a little trouble breathing. And I said, okay, well, Gregory's coming. He's literally on his way. I just talked to him. I was like, I'm gonna call you in 20 minutes, you know, or call me back in 20 minutes, or just let me know what's going on. And then I stepped away from my desk, and I come back, and I see a missed call from her. And it was a voicemail, and I didn't listen to that. I just called her, and she didn't pick up. And no, she did pick up. She picked up, and she was struggling. Like, she couldn't breathe. And then the doctor called me and was like, we're moving her to ICU to help her. We're gonna have to incubate her to help her breathe. So I rushed to the hospital. My brother calls me. I'm halfway there. He was like, it's not looking good. You know, it's not looking good. And so I get there, and she's in ICU, tubes down her throat. Doctor comes up to me and was like, it's a high probability she's gonna code. We need to know if you want us to resuscitate. And I was the caregiver. Basically, if anything was to happen to her, I make medical decisions. And luckily, her and I had those discussions on, you know, if anything was to happen, this is what I want you to do. So she told me, yes, resuscitate me, try. And not even maybe 5 minutes later, she codes, doctors running in, nurses going in. And in my head, I'm like, okay, this is it. You know, this is it. I'm preparing myself. Like, this is it. And I'm watching them work on her. A minute goes by, and they got her back. And at this point, she's I don't want to say she wasn't there, but the tubes were in her. You know, I talked to the doctor, like, you know, when people get resuscitated like that, it's so much pressure and stuff on the body. And for someone who's in fragile condition already. So one of the things that my mom said was she never wanted to be hooked up to tubes, never wanted that. So I waited a day. My older brother came from Rhode Island. And I talked to my siblings. I said, you know, this is what she wanted. Is everybody cool with that? We all agreed. And they moved her to hospice. And everything happened on a Monday. Wednesday, they pulled everything out. And they're thinking, okay, she's gonna maybe a couple of minutes, maybe an hour or so. A day goes by, 2 days goes by. I don't leave. I do not eat. I do not sleep. I do not do anything. I probably lost 10 pounds in that 1 week. Someone was always there with me, you know, either my siblings or family member or whatever. And Steph, you said something about music. I had gospel the whole entire time. Did not turn the gospel music off. One particular, my brother and I were about to get ready to go to bed in the hospital room. My mom's favorite artist was Luther Vandross. That was her guy.
My mom too.
So mind you, have not touched my phone. It's been on the gospel music station, close to it. All of a sudden, I hear this. I'm like, when Luther got a gospel song? I'm like, when did Luther get a gospel song? And I look over at my brother and I go walk over to the phone and it's Luther Vandross playing. And I was like, okay, Ma, I hear you. Okay. And then when the song was over, it went back to gospel music. And
wow.
It was on Apple Music State, like it was a station. So like, it was just, but the night that she passed, I was there by myself. I had been staying there every night. So I had been listening to her breathing. So I knew exactly, you know, how her breath would go. And then the last night, which I was by myself for the first night, I noticed that her breathing had changed. And I went and got the nurse. And it wasn't anything like noticeable, but because I had been listening the whole 7 days, 5 days or whatever, I just knew it was like a hint of something, just like a rasp or something. And nurse came in, checked her, and she looked over at me and she was like, yeah. And maybe a minute or two later, she took her last breath. And that last breath, when she took her last breath, I took my last breath, to sort of say, you know, I took that breath and it was like a release. It was like a peace that came over me. And just knowing that it wasn't over for her, because you know where she's going, but it was no more suffering, no more pain, none of that. So we didn't have a funeral. That wasn't her wish, was not to have a funeral. She got cremated and we had a celebration of life party, and it happened 2 months after her passing. And then like our family was able to get together. My brother was able to come back from Germany, and you know, so we just had a big party and celebrated who she was. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Man, okay. Whew, let me just get this ready. So I'm gonna back up a little bit of the day of, because the time frame for my mom was a little over 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, but a little over 2 weeks. And this is back in 2008. So I'm telling you, the blurs are major for me. So I got a call in Atlanta. She was still down here in Miami. Got a call from her, just, I need you to come down here this is my mom. I need you to come down here in Miami because I'm having an issue, girl. I am at the hospital. They just told me that my liver cancer has went to stage 4. And I wasn't even thinking about stage 1, 2, and 3. Like now, years has passed. I'm like, lady, you didn't even tell me about 1 and 2 or 3. You know what I mean? And I know why. because she didn't want me to be concerned about HIV and cancer. I get it, right? So she was like, I'm in a hospital. You need to come. I'm like, Ma, like, you know, you're going to get out of the hospital. You're going to be out of there. Like, I don't know what these people are talking about. Like what treatment you have to take. Because even at that time, I was already mentally in denial about her health going for the worst period. My mom had never been in the hospital. For her living with HIV for all of these years, I've never seen my mom in the hospital. I've never seen her get an IV. I had never seen her any state of, you know, being sick. My mom was always the healthiest lady in my eyes into the world living with HIV. Like, she was like poster child. Like, she didn't, like Jonique said, like, she never looked like, even though there's no look anyway, but she just never looked like she was sick. She had never, none of that. Like, so when she called me and told me she was in the hospital, it was like, you're going to be out. I was such in denial. And when I told her that, she was like, no. When I heard that from her, I had to book my plane, book my ticket, and get there. She was like, no, I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to be in the hospital. And I was just like, nah, I'm 22, 23. I had just turned 23. So basically I'm still 22, right? That's the age where, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to say it now is different, but being that young, like, just hearing your mom tell you that, and like, what do you mean? Like, okay, well, I'll be there. So get down here in Miami. I had to stay with my grandmother at the time while she was in the hospital. So go to the hospital. I see her. She's her normal self. She's just in the hospital, which makes me still break down because, once again, I had never seen her in the hospital. She was actually in the hospital for Mother's Day that year. That was my last Mother's Day with her, was in the hospital, because it was in May. So went to see her, brought her all of her favorites like Sprite, Coca-Cola, you know, brought her some flowers, and just tried to get her to be okay with being in the hospital, because she already had an attitude about everything about her even being up in there, and why her doctors even got her in there. Like, she was so upset with them. I remember that. Speaking of songs, that time at 23, I wasn't playing no gospel music. I knew about God. I knew about my faith. I knew that my strength, I was just getting into my walk in Christ, right? So there was no music of gospel, but there was some other music going on up in there, right? And one of her, I would never forget this vision she was coming out of the bathroom, and she was walking with the little IV thing, and we had the music on, and it was every time I hear this song, it is a done deal. It is a done deal. The song, it goes, how it goes. Do your dance, clap. It's one of those little clap your hands, do your dance.
Down, do your dance. No, Cupid.
Was that it?
That's the song.
Oh.
So I can see her in the bathroom, you know, like that was my mom. She was full of life. She went out, she had fun. You know what I mean? Like, she danced, she used to drink her little Coke and rum. Like, that was her thing. Like, my mom just lived her life. Like, she just had such a blast. Like, she was just so cool. You know what I mean? So that song comes on, and we listen to the radio, and she's just doing the whole little routine, you know what I mean, with her thing in her hand. So every time I hear that song, I have to walk away. Just have my moment, because I can't listen to the whole song. Like, period. Like, it's been years. I just went to the bowling alley a couple of months ago with some friends, and the doggone song came on, and I had to walk away. Like, because it gives me the automatic vision of her in there, right? But anyway, so she's in there. She had been in there for a while, and she was still herself. I think for me, I had a 2-part phase of losing my mom. Like, I had the phase where it was actually the day, but then I actually had before the day was when she wasn't herself anymore. She was still in the hospital. she had transitioned to, she was just talking off the top of her head. She was just saying random things. Like, it just didn't make any sense. She was just, I feel like she was gone. From that day on, knowing she wasn't there, like I couldn't talk to her and she could respond to me. I could say, "Ma, how you doing today?" And it would be like, "Oh, I just saw the baby and the baby was," like, you know what I mean? Like, I had lost my mom before I lost her. And then it went from that to a veggie state, to where there was nothing for days. There was no response for days. So maybe not even 2, maybe I lost her in 3 different versions. It was so hard for me to be at that hospital every day. And some days I sit back and regret, like, you should have been there every day, Angie. You should have been there every day, every night. But I know myself at that time, I just couldn't. Like, it was so hard to see this woman who was of strength. This woman who I seen me lost both of my brothers. I never seen her cry in front of me in my house. I lost brother after brother. And she never showed me any emotion. So I wanted to be just like that. Like, I don't want to be like this. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see that from my mom, you guys. Like, and of course she probably had those moments when I was probably asleep or something like that. But I just never see her show any emotions, like any sad emotional, soft emotions. That was not my mom. So to see my mom in the hospital like that, like, I just could not face it. Even though today I still feel like I should have been there, but I still could not face it. I just always thought, like, dang, she gonna get out of here. She gonna wake up. Like, she gotta wake up. Like, this is Anna Wyman, bro. Like, she gotta get out of here. You know what I mean? And then to see her in veggie state, it was just almost like, oh my God, like, is she really not coming back? Is she not gonna be able to talk back to me?
Mm-hmm.
And the day she was able to talk back to me, did I ask her enough? Did I talk to her enough? So that's the stuff I still kind of like think about. And then the day of was, I remember I got a call. It was early morning before anybody could even go to the hospital that day. My uncle called me, which is my mom's brother. It's my mom and her 2 brothers. And he called me and said, you know, meet at the hospital today with me and Ozzy. It's going to be us 3. The doctors want to talk to us. So I get there and it's just us 3. And my uncles didn't have any kids at the time. It was just me, you know, my mom's 2 brothers and me. And we walk out the room and go down the hallway. Never forget the hallway. Never forget the bench. The end of the hallway, we're talking to the doctors. The doctors was like, okay, at this point, it's time for hospice, right? And I know my mom, like, ain't no hospice. I'm unresponsive. There's no hospice. You're not going to keep me in this state. You know what I mean? So automatically, me and my other uncle, who is not here anymore, he said, no. And he's very boisterous, like they were like twins almost. No, she not going into no bleepling hospice. That's not going to happen. And then my uncle, who's in charge, he's a little bit more settled. He's not like my mom and my other uncle Ozzy. He's like a little bit more reserved. So he was like, well, you know, like, I don't know what hospice would be. And it was like, well, it will have to be at your house. We could bring her to your house. And my other uncle was like, no, you're not leaving her out of this hospital to take her to no house to keep her in the bed. And at that time they looked at me and I was crying and I just said, I agree. You're not going to take her out of this hospital, to take her over Uncle David's house, to put her in a room, to wait for a nurse to come see her while she's in veggie state. Like, what is the big deal of that? To continue what? No, y'all, back then I was very extra. I was like Angie times 10. And I went off on the doctor and I just told him, no, y'all blanks are going to do your jobs and take care of her in his hospital. So she's going to have full care around. It's not the nurses coming to the house and their lady is 10 o'clock in the morning to what, 8 o'clock at night, and then from 8 o'clock until the next nurse come, who knows what can happen while no nurse is there at home. No, y'all do y'all jobs and y'all get her together while she's here, period. So I just stormed off, and I went in the room, and I just went to the bed, and I whispered in her ear, and I said, "Ma, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, what they're trying to say, like, I don't agree with it, and I have to leave. Like, I have to go, like, because I don't know what Uncle David is about to tell them, and I don't have any control. I can't have the final say. He has the final say." So I was like, I don't agree with whatever is about to happen. I already told him how I felt, but I love you. I love you. And I left. I stormed right out of the room. I didn't go back down the hall. I left. I went over my friend's house, my best friend's house at the time. I remember being there, telling her, like, it's just not going good. And I left her house and went over to my grandmother's house, and I just went to the bed. It had been like maybe 2 hours after I left the hospital, after I had seen my friend, left her house and went back to my grandmother's house to go lay down and just sob and do everything I wanted to do. And then I got a phone call. They called my grandmother, actually, and they came down the hall and told me, like, "Hey, Granny want to talk to you." And I'm like, "What does Granny want to talk about?" Like, I don't want to talk about nothing right now. So I go in Granny's room, and everybody in the house comes in Granny's room. Mm-hmm. And everybody was just like, "We're so sorry." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" You know what I mean? Granny was like, "They just called me because you were not answering your phone. Uncle David just called me and told me your mom just passed." And I was like, I just left the hospital. I just left. I had just left. It wasn't that long. So I go in her bathroom and I just break down. Like, I just broke down because I had just left. But at the same time, I thought about, even now I think about, at least I told her I loved her before I left. Mm-hmm. At least I told her how I felt, just as her daughter would have told her, like, I don't agree with none of that junk they talking about, like, blah, blah, blah. I told her exactly how I would tell her as if she was alive. You know what I mean? But I still just felt like, dang, like, she left when I left and said she was done too. You know what I mean? And I told her, I don't agree with none of this. She basically said to me, I don't agree with it either. I'm finna hit it too. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I took it. Like, and the next day, I went to work. The next day, I had a flavor of love obligation that I had to go fly out and do. I went to work. And after that, it was just a numb. It was just a blur. So it was a blur. I don't even remember, like, after that day. Funeral, the funeral, everybody was kind of surprised because I stood up there and I knew it was my mom. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I didn't show no sad emotion. I stood up there. I had my speech. I said, I am Anna Wyman's daughter, and you've never seen her stop in front of y'all. You won't see it today. You won't see her you won't see it today. Not from her daughter. So I stood up there and I was so strong. I was so strong. And I remember just feeling her. Like, I felt like some of the words I was saying was just like of her. Like, it was like her voice. And the place was packed. Like, her funeral was so packed because, again, I didn't realize how many people she had impacted and how many people she had worked with. Like, the entire church was full. People were standing up. It was a huge thing, and I didn't realize it till after the fact. Because she never talked about HIV with me at home like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing when she used to come home, because she worked in HIV. That was her job. So when she came home, we just never talked about it to depth. Like, she'll tell me a little bit here and there, condoms, take her some condoms if you need them. Like, Mom, girl, I'm not even having sex, child. You don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? Like, the condoms is here. If you need them, give them to your friends. Like, that was my mom, right? And so to see all those people, man, I was just like, my God. Like, and that made me even stronger. So I don't think I told that story in a very long time. Yeah, that was my day. And that was the funeral, and that was right before the day. Like it's crazy because it was so long ago, and yeah,
The blur is real.
girl, the blur is real. The blur is real, but the emotions are even realer. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Like you can vividly see it.
Yeah.
There is certain, it's so funny, everybody talks about a song. And for me, like I said, I was here, and I'd gone to the mall. I think I'd gone, what store was I in? I think I was in Nordstrom Rack. And we have a family song that at every barbecue, we end the song with "Someday We'll Be Together" by Diana Ross. Stephanie has experienced it. Like, my family gets in a circle, and it's the last song played before everybody leaves. And it's kind of like, we'll see each other again, whether it's the next function or we'll just see each other again. So it was like our family thing, and whoever was there, you're allowed to join the circle, and everybody just dances together. So in Nordstrom Rack, home funeral's coming up, and the song comes on in Nordstrom Rack.
The song.
And I start chuckling because I'm like, yeah, I ain't never played this song.
Right.
Right.
But when we talk about that piece that our mothers come to give us, those signs, those reminders, those things that we hold on to, I felt like she was like, I'm here. I got you still. You know, like, this is just a reminder. I may not be here physically, but I'm here with you. So like hearing it in the store, it gave me a piece. So it's, yeah.
That's so crazy. These songs, child, they say music is powerful. It sure is. It could take you back in time like a.
But like, I think that's what helps me through the blur is like when those like little token things, or I'll find something like a picture or, you know, a conversation with a friend of hers or something like that, because I can't even, I think all of y'all kind of mentioned, I don't even remember, like, I struggle with remembering the last conversation because 5 years ago. And Angie, you touched on the transition of basically when they go from being lucid to not. And I cannot for the life of me remember when I can, like, what exactly the last exchange was. I definitely, I know I was annoying the mess out of her in ICU, like at a point, because I was like, Ma, you love me? And she was like, are you gonna stop? And I was like, no. And I had it like on audio, and she was like, I love you, okay? And I'm like, you know, like, I remember kind of stuff like that, but I don't really recall, definitely not the Friday before, because I think at that point she was so exhausted. She was just kind of resting. But yeah, I don't even remember, like, when was the last time her and I had words, which I don't know why I'm so hung up on it, but it's just like one of those things that I'm like, dang, I wish I could remember the last exchange, basically.
I know.
And then, I mean, the week after, you can forget about it. Like,
girl.
you don't know how to plan something until you force to plan it. And it was just my sister and I. So we put on our big girl panties and was calling people. And neither of us lived in Florida. So, you know, we were going off of literally Google to see reviews of places. And, you know, she wasn't big on, she had a small church that she attended, but based off of the size of, you know, her friends in our family, we just decided to do a celebration of life ceremony at a funeral home. And it was great. It was packed. But even that was a blur. Like, I remember my sister speaking. And I had a friend or two sing, but other than that, like, I can't even remember everyone who was there. think it was just, yeah, like I said, the blur is real. I know I was there, but I can't do anything like highlights or anything like that.
All right, so moving forward from all the tears, let's talk about a few things when it comes to dealing with losing our mom right after that up until today. So just a two-part question. How have you dealt with it? How have you coped with it, kind of, in a way? And then second part of the question is, what would you say, the things that you received, what can be a help to others listening?
In 2014 is when my mom was diagnosed, and it was stage 4 lung cancer. And at that time, it was kind of like a just coping mechanism. First thing was find a therapist, because being away from my mom as well, not being in the same state when she's going to treatments and things of that nature was pretty heavy. And just the transition of just being an adult, work changes and all types of things like that. So I started going to a therapist to kind of have an outlet, to be careful of putting a lot of my anticipatory grief, shall I say, on people at work, you know, or even on family members, or even on my mom. So my therapist was definitely something that was helpful. As the time progressed, I have a cousin who is just a holistic therapist, I'll call her. And she lost both of her parents, my aunt and her father. And she really encouraged my sister and I, especially as it got a lot closer, to record or ask a lot of questions. That was something I'm so grateful for, because even though I only captured a couple of things during that like week transition, I still had those, you know, asking her questions about her childhood, asking her questions about when she met my father, asking her questions about if I was to have a child, you know, what should I name him or her? And she gave me names, and I'm going to honor those, you know, like those are certain things that, had someone not recommended it, in the midst of that, I'm not thinking of trying to capture these memories, you know. She suggested, you know, taking a picture of her hands, you know, just so you can remember what they look like, just things like that. And especially because when they are transitioning and their body is going through chemo and everything like that, you don't necessarily, they don't feel their best, so you don't want to take pictures of them all the time, and they might not be up to it, because let's be honest, they're not their cells, right? They're not their normal vibrancy based off of, you know, everything that they're going through. But one thing I will say that was also very helpful was leaning on friends who, you know, had lost their moms before. Keara is one. Angie is another. And also just talking to people who were able to just let me vent. Or like I had a friend one time, I don't even think he uttered one word for an entire hour, and I just cried. And that was helpful, because there wasn't anything, and he never experienced, you know, maternal loss, but I just called him and I bawled out, like literally. And that was it. Like that was the relief and release that I needed in that moment. So I was very appreciative, you know, for that. I didn't continue therapy as often as I was going then. I do want to go back, just, you know, for general purposes, but I think that was very helpful. And it also helped me to kind of recognize something that I got from my mom passing away, that I would like to teach people, or advise people of. If you have a frame of mind that none of us are here forever, right? When our children are born to us or when we're born to our parents, we are not theirs. We are on borrowed time. God placed us here. And so we take a lot when it comes to ownership. Like, that's my mom or I'm her daughter. But in all honesty, like, we're God's children. And so when I kind of processed the fact that she wasn't mine to begin with, it lessened the blow for me a little bit that he took her back, you know? Like, and the concept of it seems a little like, but she was yours, you know? But he gave her to me on borrowed time. And I think that just helped me a lot. And it still helps me still to this day, because it's like, anybody can, have experienced loss, whether it's, a mother, father, children, siblings, whatever the case may be. But when you kind of take the ownership away from the relationship, for me, it lessens the blow. There was a second part, I think, that you said.
No, that's good. You just added a third to that. Like, I like how you just explained how you felt about God in it, even though we was going to talk about God like in the next couple of segments, but to hear you say that she wasn't yours, she's his, and if he said he want her now, he gonna bring her now, you know what I mean? So that was a good touch. But to go back to what you said, so the first part was, you answered it, like, how did family and friends be there for you, that you could invite somebody else to learn from that? Or even when you said taking pictures of hands, asking her questions of kids, like, my gosh, girl, I definitely wasn't thinking about that. And I definitely couldn't record anyway, because 2008 was just a different media era. Didn't have the luxury.
That was another thing. I would definitely, and even to those who have healthy moms, right? Have conversations now. Have those conversations about what they want. Just life conversations that you think that you're going to have the opportunity to have, and you just don't know how time is going to shift. So I think that that's important, is to just talk about everything, even the most minute things that might seem uncomfortable, but I would say, just go there, because, you just never know when you're not going to be able to have those conversations. Like, even when it comes to, I miss things like being in the car, dealing with road rage, and calling her like, oh my gosh, like, I'm a killer. And she'd be like, no, I need you to calm down. Like, it's okay. Like, that people can't drive, little stuff like that, like capturing just random moments and stuff like that. But I would just say, when you can, have those conversations. If you can, record them, video them, whatever, just so you can have them, and not necessarily to have them to post anywhere, but have them for yourself, and maybe
exactly. Just to even go back and just listen to see, like,
in the voice,
you know what I mean?
To have the voice, to remember.
Yes.
The way that they walk, the way that they respond, or what it sounds like when they say, I love you.
Yes, girl. No voicemails over here, no videos over here. I have none of that. Even though it was VHS time, I didn't have no camcorder. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't even thinking about that. Like, that's good info. That's good info.
I'm going to echo what Stephanie says in the sense of having those conversations with your mom. Building a relationship. I think one thing, like I said, I realized in hindsight, my mother was my best friend. As a teenager, I had a lot of friends and always wanted to be outside with my friends. And the one thing her and my dad used to always tell me was, when all your friends go home, we're going to be the ones that are here with you. And that was because it was a transition in terms of teenage years. And I was focused on, being outside, being a teenager. And that was kind of like her way to say, yeah, I get it, but realize that you have a home and a family and people that are here with you as well. So I think during those transition years in college that our relationship got better, just because, you know, you start to realize, especially as you go to college and you're having those conversations with your parents or your mom, you know, you have to be a little bit more honest.
Yeah.
You know, especially as you're transitioning into adult and you're trying to figure things out. So I would say build a relationship with your mom, a stronger relationship. And I will also say, be mindful of the relationships that you currently carry, and ask yourself whether or not people support you. Ask yourself whether or not you feel like you can be honest with people and truthful with people. And I just say that too, in where we are right now in culture. This pandemic came, people started losing, whether it was jobs, relationships, all of those things. And you have to know that you have a strong support system, because things happen instantly. So I would say build their relationships with your parents, build their relationships with people around you. And as an outlet as well, I personally did not go to a counselor. But as Stephanie said, if you need an outlet and you want an unbiased opinion or just someone to speak to, find a counselor. That's important. I did not go to a counselor, but I did go back to Michigan, and I was by myself. But I also felt like it was a healing for me, like what I needed at the time. I threw myself into school. Thankfully, I never failed out. I never failed a class, you know, those kind of things. So I threw myself into school. Not that it made it easier, but I did have something to kind of move my mind away from the constant grief. And I feel like it would have been different if I actually decided to move back to New York and be home. And that was a conversation I had with friends and family. They felt like, you sure you don't want to come back? And I was just like, no, what am I going to do here? Like, I don't have a job. You know, school at the time was my job. This is what I needed to do. So I felt like that was a good time for me as well. I was able to tap into my emotions. But like I said, also knew that I had a support system of people that if I did need to pick up the phone, I had that. I would also say something is, like Stephanie said, your faith, whatever that is, and understanding that God is the author and the finisher. And everybody may not have that faith at this moment, but seek it from whatever God you have. I am personally Christian, but in every religion, we understand that death is a part of life. Mm-hmm. So find that in whatever religion, in whatever higher power and spirituality, to understand that. And that has definitely been a pillar in my life. So faith, relationships. Yeah, faith and relationships.
That's good.
That's real good. I think for me, the one thing that you have to really think about is and understand that everyone's grieving process is different. For me, I'm the kind of person where I just shut completely all the way down, and I don't want to deal with anybody. I don't want anybody talking to me. I don't want advice. I don't want let me go through what I'm going through. That's just me. So when everything was happening, and I have some amazing, amazing friends, and I think you really see who those people are. And I'm not even gonna say like, you know, because there are people that still care about you and they just don't know. They don't know how to, you know, what to say because they've never experienced anything like that. You know, they don't want to say the wrong things, or, you know, they don't want to come off too chipper or whatever the case may be. So you can't say just because they didn't reach out to you, then they don't care about you. I don't think that's the case at all. But for me, when everything happened, I was the one taking care of everything. So once she passed, I had to find the cremation place. I had to call her credit card companies. I had to, you know, all that stuff was on me, and I've never done anything like that before. No clue. And I say how quick she was supposed to go when they pulled those tubes out, and it didn't happen that way. She did that intentionally to me, because I felt like she kind of gave me time to kind of process everything that was happening. I didn't know where her life insurance policy was. I knew she had one, but we talked about it, but she never told me where it was going to be, you know? So just happened to be like when she was in the hospice, and after day 3 or 4, I'm in there, and my family was like, you have to go home and take a shower. You know, you have to just go home, take a shower, and come back. And I was like, okay. So I finally went home, and, you know, something just told me, like, go in her room. Just go in her room and just take a look around, you know? And so I did that. And as soon as I walk in and I look to her dresser, the life insurance policy is right there with my name on it, or in an envelope. So, of course, having those conversations especially with the people who have gone through it before. I know Angie helped me a lot during that time right after. My boss who went through it, he's the one that told me, you know, make sure you have the conversation of, you know, does she want to get cremated? And this is before anything even happened. But that kind of prepared me to have those tough conversations. Like you said, like, we're all going. Like, no one's going to be here forever. And the best thing to help your loved ones is to have those tough conversations now while you're here. So when they can actually grieve when, you know, if, you know, that happens to you or to them or whatever, and they can actually grieve, and they don't have to worry about where the money's going to come from, or, you know, is it a burial? Is it a cremation? Like, what's going to happen? You already have it planned out. So you can just, however you feel like you have to grieve, you can do that.
Yeah.
I went straight back to work. I probably would have went to work sooner. I think I was out for 2 weeks. I probably would have went back sooner, but I was just handling stuff. I did see a therapist. I actually started seeing a therapist after she called me initially, and they said she thought the cancer had spread. With work and everything else, Steph, to your point, I was like, I can't. This is just too much for me. I got to talk to someone. And I needed to talk to someone who didn't really know anything. I could just speak freely, you know, and that's what it was. And that definitely helped. And I did continue to see my therapist up until COVID happened. So that definitely helped. But I do think that you have to remember everyone just grieves differently, and just respect that. I had to talk to my dad. My dad was at the hospital every single day. And when everything happened, I kind of cut my dad off. It wasn't like intentionally. For like a week, I just didn't talk to anyone. And he had to like call me, and it's like, look, I'm here. You know, even if you don't want to talk, just shoot me a text and say, you know, I'm okay. You know, because some people, they can have a mental breakdown over it, especially if it's someone that you're around. That's your person that birthed you, like, you know what I mean? So I know with my siblings, they're younger than me, and it kind of reminds me of when your mom passed and you saying how young you are, and, you know, you keep thinking, oh, everything's going to be okay. I think my siblings kind of had that same thought process. So when everything happened, they're so full of regret now. You know, they're so full of, I wish I was there. I wish I would have taken her to that treatment when I was like, oh no, I want to go work out, or oh, I want to go hang with my friends, or, you know, those little things, just the little things. It doesn't have to be anything major, but you have to keep in mind that we're not going to be here. And I think what helped give me peace was that I knew that majority of it, because I still have my what ifs, you know, what if I would have done this or this or this, but I know I did everything in my power that I could do to be a great daughter and to help her, and to, you know, because she used to brag on me all the time. I felt sorry for my siblings I was like the golden child. But I always put my mom on a pedestal, like, because that's your mom, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I would just definitely say, just remember, everyone's not going to be here. Have those tough conversations. Just remember, everybody grieves differently.
That's good. Having them tough conversations for me was something that we just never talked about. Because I had like an extra layer of death with my mom. So the whole HIV thing was just always has just been the cloud, the elephant in the room that people just don't want to talk about or even address, even though you know HIV and death is just like together. So my coping, what I did was I just went to work. I just did everything I could. I continued what I had been doing my whole life after learning about my mom and my brothers. I just didn't talk about it because the more I had to talk about my mom's death, the more I had to talk about it and probably reveal HIV. And at the time, I still didn't want to talk about it. But I do remember, even though I don't remember a lot of stuff, the day she did pass, after I got myself together in that bathroom and realized I had to go to work the next day, I actually went back to my best friend's house at the time, and I had to sit down and talk to her and just let her know, not only did my mom just pass like a couple of minutes ago, but this is why. And that was my first time I kind of came out and told somebody else and just had like HIV across my lips with just anybody, because I couldn't talk about it with my family. My family just never talked about it with me. So that was my first time I came out and just said, you know, my mom had HIV. And she, you know, what she said at the time, she was like, why you never told me? Like, why did you hold this whole time? I said, with my brothers too. And she she dropped her mouth and she was just like, I just cannot believe every time your brothers passed, like that was the reason. I'm like, yeah. She said, I wish you would have told me. And I just couldn't tell anybody. So how I cope with it was how I normally cope with life. It was, you deal with it, you keep it moving. And I learned that behavior from my mom. So like I said earlier, it was like when my first brother passed away, he was 5. This was like 92. She wasn't walking around looking like she depressed. My mom was up. She was at it. She still had me. She had my other brother, Doug, too, to be there and be strong for her. At the funeral, yes, she probably cried at the funeral. But after that funeral, no, tighten up, keep it moving. You got work to do. You got to be strong. It was just always strength, 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 strength. It's like the bold thing over my life. And I just kept coping just like that. Well, I said, is it a positive thing to keep things amongst yourself? I have no idea, but that was my thing. And that has always been my thing, to keep it to myself, deal with it. It's me and God. Like, he has to use that in some type of way, form, or fashion. I don't know how and why. I never talked to a therapist. I have thought about it recently to do so, but I've never talked to a therapist up until all of that time. I just kind of use the platform as I go when it came to talking to people as the years went by, revealing HIV and my mom together, revealing I even have brothers to some of you guys. You didn't even know, you know what I mean? To a certain point. You met me like Jonique and Stef. They didn't know I had brothers until I actually said I did. And when they found out, it was HIV attached to it. You know what I mean? So I didn't even want to tell people I had brothers because I got to talk about what happened. You know what I mean? Like, nobody know nothing. So that was my coping. It was keep your mouth shut. You don't want to be judged. You don't want to be none of that. So just keep doing what you always do. And again, like Jonique said, everybody just kind of grieve differently. But you would have never knew. I didn't have a depressed look on my face. Like, I was trucking out there. Like, this was around Flavor of Love. Like, I was going to parties. I was just literally just going. Like, that was my work. I was always booked to do parties. So every weekend I was out in different cities, in different states. And I was just going out, doing what I had to do to keep it moving. When it came to family, again, I barely had support there. Don't know why. I think, again, because the HIV layer was there, and I don't know if they even want to talk about. I have no idea. Still don't know to this day about everything. But my dad part that played in it, he was kind of there, but he couldn't because my grandmother had passed away like months later. So my mom was May, my grandmother was October, that same year, and then my great grandmother was November. So it was just a lot of things where I couldn't have too much support from family, but again, it was just me, myself, and I, and some friends that I shared about that she passed away, but not how. And again, I just don't remember too much. But what I can say to people is, you don't have to mimic anybody to make you feel like you're doing the right thing. You can do what you feel to do and what you know to do. And if you feel the urgency or even the inkling to go talk to a counselor, somebody outside of friends, somebody outside of family, you can do that. And this is for those who already had lost their parents, already lost their mom. Like, it's how you deal with it. You don't want to be stuck in it. I do agree with that part. Like, you don't want to feel like God has punished you because he has taken your mother away. No, I have to agree with Stef and Jonique with that. When it came to my mindset back then was, again, I was just getting into the walk of my faith, and I had just got saved the year before that. Thank God for that, because it prepared me when the time happened to not hate God. My thing was, I remember Creflo always used to say, you can't be selfish. Don't be selfish. Like, who are you to be selfish and tell God to keep your mom here as if you're going to be her God to stay here? You could barely even see, like, why would you want to keep her here and you can't take care of, you know what I mean? Like, that was the things that was drilling into my head and my faith at the time. And I thank God for that, because I didn't have not one question of why God, why? I didn't have that conversation with God ever. And that's just my personal, you know what I mean? And I thank God for that too, because he was the only thing I had. That's all I had to talk to, was just me and him. So my discussions was never why. It was just like, God, like, I used to always hear my mom say, give me the strength, God. She used to say that all over the house, and she'd just be busting out, like, just throughout the day, Lord, just give me the strength. And I just never knew, because I was young, you know what I mean? But, you know, later on in life, you realize, like, she needed it. She needed it. So my advice is, I already said, for those who lost their mom, and for those who still got your mom and she's like maybe on her deathbed and she's still responsive. You heard what Stef and Jonique said, like, talk to her, take them pictures, get them voicemails. I don't have not one voicemail. I don't have not one video. I don't have nothing. Only thing I have is pictures, which I'm still grateful for, but I don't have like a lot of pictures, like recent. I have like a lot of younger pictures. So talk to her, take pictures, ask her questions, ask her all type of stuff, whatever you want to ask her. Just ask her to like Stef said, until she gets tired of you. And when she's tired, she still don't want to answer. So, yeah, like, just don't be afraid of how you want to cope with it. If you don't want to talk to nobody, you ain't got to talk to nobody. My friends at the time just told me, you know, they was just like, I'm sorry. I kind of remember everybody telling me they were there for me when they found out my mom had passed away, but I really don't remember too much of nothing, because I was the only one at the time that I knew that had lost a mom. So I couldn't really relate to a lot of people back then. But
interesting that you say that, because I felt the same way. Like, there weren't people around that had lost their mom.
Yeah, we were young.
So,
younger.
Yeah. And it was, you know, you go through like, okay, who am I going to talk to that anybody would understand?
Yeah.
And now, like I said, in hindsight, it's been a blessing, you know, having friends that came after me and losing their mom or just having a loss, and being able to be a source or, you know, a support to them has been a blessing. You know, we see this in the moment. We might have seen it as something that was a detriment to us, but ultimately, like, this is why we're here, right? To discuss this, to help other people. So we're now taking this and helping others. So that's just been a blessing to me. And actually brings me happiness. Like I was able to use this for bigger than myself. Like this is bigger than us.
Yes.
This is like something that we are called to do for this time. So
agreed.
I had to have a conversation with a very good friend of mine where her and her mom, they're not really close, and her mom got sick and was in the hospital, but she didn't tell, like her mom didn't tell her she was in the hospital. She found out on like social media that she was in the hospital. So she was so upset and mad and like and angry and wouldn't talk to her. And I'm like, you know, okay, she's in the hospital. I know you're upset that she didn't tell you, but she's still here. You know what I mean? And it was like, you have to, I know your parents make you upset. Your parents make you mad. I mean, it happens, of course, but you still have them.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice is, you know, if you're in some type of, I don't know, situation with your parents or your mom or whatever, and you're not really speaking, take the time and reach out now while they're still here.
Yeah.
Have a conversation. And at least you can say, I tried, because I don't know, sometimes you have stubborn parents that they just don't want to hear or whatever. I mean, I know, but
it's true.
At least it'll give you peace to know that you reached out and you said what you had to say. Just tell them, you know, I love you. You know, even if we don't talk, I still love, you know, you don't want that last conversation to be of the wrong one, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So.
And it's funny you say that. I told someone this on social media because they were going in on their mother, and I'd seen like multiple times. And for me, you know, you have a different perspective after you lose your mom. And, you know, my only comment, probably like 2 sentences, Stephanie, but my only comment was, after all that you've said, if she should pass away tomorrow, would you want to delete this? You know, are you okay with the thought that after all, does it even matter? If she was gone tomorrow, does it matter? And that's just like you're saying, Jonique, like we have to think about outside of ourselves and these like temporary moments and focus on the bigger picture.
That's good. So yeah, so you speaking about that makes me think maternal figures, right? So we all know you only get one mom. Ain't nobody can replace her. Nobody's love, support, like nobody would never be enough. I've been there and done that. Like nobody can never be enough. So with you guys, like what would you talk about when it comes to maternal figures? Like have you found any, do you kind of like seek maternal figures more, or you expect certain people to step up as maternal figures? Just a conversation around that.
I don't expect much anymore, you know, because there are people that I think my sister and I would have assumed would have maybe stepped up, especially when she was diagnosed sick and they didn't. And we don't fault them for it, but I just don't put a lot of weight on the expectations of just any other people, because they'll fail you and then, you know, you'll feel away. So I have a very large, my mom's side of the family is large. She had 8 brothers and sisters, and I had 3 living aunts, all of which from time to time, you know, reach out to me. One in particular, which is my youngest aunt, we tend to kind of, you know, are in contact with one another more often than not. But it's just not the same. I'm appreciative for the relationship because, you know, sometimes it's just you want to sit on the phone with someone that's not, you know, quote unquote on your level. Like you kind of want that. And my youngest aunt is not a mom, but she kind of gets it. I can kind of use her as a voice of reason. But what is weird oftentimes is that some days she could sound like my mom. And so that will throw me a little bit. I'm like, gosh, she sounds like her today. Like, you know, All of my aunts do, actually. So that's interesting. Definitely, my conversations as I've grown with my grandmother have gotten definitely more close than I think. I've discussed things, I feel like, with my grandmother more than I did with my own mom, which is interesting. Her lens on things, of course, she's almost 96, is going to be super broad. So that has been, really interesting. But I'm also like a little selective with that too, because she's lost children, several children. So it's like, you don't want to necessarily burden someone who's, lost children, because as much as I lost my mother, she's lost 3 children. So I have, godparents and my mom's close friends, who reach out as well. One in particular was her good girlfriend that she met in Florida. I didn't really know her long. She met her like late in the game. Like when I was living in DC is when she met this woman. And we talk about like maybe once a year, maybe twice. But when we do, like, it's a great catch up. She's super real. And I know if I need to, I can always, call her. Of course, my sister and I have gotten, way closer than we probably ever would have been, prior to this. We were already close, but this, of course, draws us, even more together. And she's 11 years older than me. So there is, there are remnants of maternal, figure conversations there. But like you said, there's no replacing. So my hope, and I'm not resting everything, into this, but whenever this husband of mine comes, maybe I'll have, a good relationship with his mom, and that would be great.
The same thing.
And not that, it's not going to be a replacement, but I do know some women who are married and they have great relationships with their, mother-in-law. So I wouldn't mind, a situation like that. But yeah, it's not necessarily something that I seek because it's like, it's just not the same. Like, no matter how much you're talking to someone, I mean, of course, there's like mentors, church, and, just a myriad of things. And you can have those conversations. Like, I had some really dynamic women that I used to work with when I was living in DC that would pour and speak life into me, pray over me constantly. So they were mother figures, but it's just, it's not going to be the same.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have an expectation. There were so many things going on. I think expectations hit when like Mother's Day came or other significant dates came and you didn't hear from people. We were all grieving. I was respectful of that, but I also felt women that were older, that were mothers, my aunts, grandmothers, those kind of things that people would kind of just, step up, reach out, and they did not. My mother's mother, we had a great relationship and she passed away a few years after my mom. But, my paternal grandmother, we didn't have that relationship. We still don't have that relationship where I feel like I could speak to her or that she reached out to show me that she wanted to be there. And just other people in my life, other women that I thought would step up. And I think I've come to a point where I just say, okay. I think I went through the period of, wow, these people wouldn't. But now I'm just like Stephanie, like, okay. And because we also go back to, you don't know people's capacity and
right.
what they want to offer you. Yeah. Or what they feel like they can offer you. So I just say, okay, there are women that I have been able to connect with when I felt like I needed that, and they provided that for me, and it was a blessing, but then there were others that just didn't. And I think it just adds to the story in the sense of I know what I was looking for, and should I be able to offer it to someone else, I will. Like, if, you know, like Steph said, I'm not, when I get married, I pray that my mother-in-law, we have that relationship. Or should I be exposed to a younger girl that does not have that, that I'm able to offer that to her as well. You know, it's not a good feeling. Your mother will never be replaced, but you want to be able to feel like you have that outlet. And when you feel like you don't, especially from family members that know the situation, that know your mother, that can offer those things, and they don't, okay. You know, you just got to be able to kind of like grasp on to what it is now and move forward and how you make that better. But it's not easy. But we're still here, right? We made it. But yeah.
Easy.
I think for me, it's a little different because I have family. I don't really have much, I don't have really any family here in Atlanta. I grew up in Atlanta. Majority of my family from my mom's side lives in North Carolina, and the rest live in Rhode Island. So I was never really too close, like talking to family like every day. That just wasn't me. But I will say, the year that my mom got sick last year, like the beginning of the year, one of my aunts, my mom's sister, she, like, they were already close, but when she really started taking a downturn, like my aunt stepped in and she showed out. Like she was it. Like when I was out of town, my mom had to get rushed to the hospital. She drove the 4 hours down here, was by her bedside. And so that kind of took some pressure off of me, because I'm like, okay, I need to get on a plane. I need to get back down there. I need to, you know, so she stepped in. Like when my mom went to the hospital and was in hospice, her and my uncle came down. They were there every step of the way. And even after she passed, the same, like she calls me. So that would be like my maternal figure right now. But yeah, there's no one that can take the place of my mom. My mom knew secrets that no one knows, and no one would ever know. it just went with her because I ain't telling nobody. But definitely, you know, they sound alike, they look alike, you know, they have that same spirit. So it's comforting in a way. She had a cousin as well that really stepped in, and whatever I need, she's there. But I think too, it was a little different for me is because, like I said, I kind of felt like I was her protector, and not really saying that I was her mother, but I played her role at points. It came to my younger siblings when she got sick with cancer the first time. I was in 11th grade. She was a single parent. She's in the hospital. I'm taking the kids, waking them up, taking them to school, you know, picking them up in the afternoon. Like I had to play that mother role because she couldn't. And so now that she's gone, my siblings are kind of looking at me as that mother figure now, you know? So we've become closer. You know, we're having weekly calls, if not every other day calls, or whatever the case may be. So that's definitely a blessing, but it's just a different dynamic for me, I think. Because I already kind of played a mother figure. And I always say, like, I don't want kids because I already raised my kids. So
Shut up.
But that's how I feel. Like I do feel like, you know, in 11th grade, and you taking care of 3 kids, like, you know, so, but yeah, it's still good. I still have those 2 that I can definitely go to if I need advice or just need to vent or anything like that.
That's good. I'm gonna just start with how what Stef said about looking forward to my husband's mom, because my family is so tiny, you guys. Like, it's not that many people left. So last year I actually went to the Bahamas, October, the same month with Jonique. so much going on with October last year. I went to the Bahamas to go visit my grandmother's sisters, which is my mom's sisters. And my mom's side of the family is in the Bahamas left, right? And it's still not that many left. They're all getting older. They're all like, man, they're all like 70, 80, you know? And of course there's other cousins there, but I'm still not close to them because I wasn't even close to their mom, you know, to my grandmother's sisters. So just trying to, I can honestly say for me, because I don't have female figures in my life, like my mom never had a sister. I never met my mom's mom because my grandmother passed away when my mom was like 15. So I never got to meet her. My dad's mom, of course, told you guys she passed away the same year as my mom. So I haven't had that relationship as an adult with the grandmother. Never knew my great-grandmother. Well, my great-grandmother, she just was like extra standoffish, even though she passed away that November too. But I never had a relationship with her up until that same, just 2008, just whatever. After that, now who I have left is my dad's sister, and we're not as close as I would love it to be. And I only say that because I have to call him out, child, to a degree, because it may help somebody right now, and I don't mind sharing this right now because, so I had a cousin who lost her mom, and my aunt stepped in for her, and my aunt still steps in for her. And I just never understood. And you know my dynamic of my family. As my aunt, you know, I don't have a different side. Like, my cousin has a different side. My cousin still has her mom's side of the family. You're part of my dad's side. You know my mom's side of the family is like non-existent. So I don't have that. And so when I do have older women who come into my life, the expectations are not high, but they're there. But then throughout the years, I just realized nobody would never be Anna. I always find like little faults in the old, you know, like they're missing this, they're lacking that. I wish that, you know what I mean? But I think now I just have to accept people for who they are and just allow God to send me who he wants to send.
That's good.
Recently, I would say my female figures as older has been all of my mom's friends, which has been so amazing to have. Like all of her good friends though. But my mom's friends who she met because of HIV, like they've been so cool to have in my life. To like spend time with and go out and hang out with and stuff like that. So my mom really left a legacy for me to have people like that. But for some odd reason, as strong as I can be and as strong as I want to be, I still want a maternal figure. And I still look for that. Maybe because I don't have like all the extra family members to talk to or be a part of, you know what I mean? I have cousins and stuff, but they're like far out and wide, you know what I mean? And my job now is to be a great aunt to my nephew as much as I can. To my little cousin, she is just flourishing. And I've seen her grow and just be there for her like a extra maternal figure that I never had, just to be there for her extra too, because she doesn't have any aunts or anything like that. So I'm like the closest thing for her, because her family is even smaller because she's not close to her dad's side. So just to try to be to them what I lack, it helps me as well. So they're not my kids, but sometimes I feel like I just thank God for them. They really help me. And it's crazy because it's like, you would never think that you really need like a maternal figure. Like, girl, just live your life. Like, you got your friends, you know what I mean? You got your friends, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna leave it at that. But I thank God for my little cousin and my nephew. I consider him my nephew. He's not like blood nephew, but he's my nephew. And yeah, and I just have to now at this age in 2020 and 2019, 2018, I think I just got a revelation of you're gonna be fine. God will bring who he wants to bring, and whoever he does bring, and you know, and you discern that heart of them, that's your family. Blood doesn't really care. I don't really care about blood anymore. Family is not only who's there for you, who you can be yourself with, who you can just display that same person that you would display in front of your mom. I take that very serious. So yeah, that's the conversation around maternal figures, child. Makeup. But it's crazy for me. Like it's and I'm just going along with it, man. I have no answers. I'm just figuring it out as I go, but I am starting to realize like I need that maternal figure, and I don't know why. But I do look forward to my husband's mom, and I know she's gonna be bomb, because if she's not, child, I don't even know how that's gonna work, honey. He better get her together in advance. That's the reality of Angela and what she deals with, but that's my life, you know what I mean? And I'm just coping with it and dealing with it. So that's why I take my friends very serious, because if I don't have time, I'll cut your behind off because I don't have the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't, because I already have other issues. Like, I don't have time when it comes to friendships. Like, girl, I don't have the time. Like, if you want to do this and you want to be that and you show me who you are, and you got to go too. Cause I could put you on the little display with the blood. I could put you over there. If I could do them like that, I could do you even worse. So anyway, we're gonna move on. I feel myself getting into a spot. Y'all know how friends go. You don't have some of the same friends throughout the years. So sometimes you gotta let friends go.
That's right.
But especially after you lose your mom, you realize things are just not as important or not as deep as they were before.
Yeah.
And my relationships changed. Like, the dynamics with people did change. And that's just because you realize people are not, like, they served you for what they were for that season, and it's a new season. My mother has passed away. What's next? I have to figure out how I'm going to keep myself together. And if you're not aiding in that, then we have to change. Yeah. And you realize that, like, after your mother passes away, like, it's different. And you have to figure that out. And sometimes that means the removal of people because they're not it. And you realize they're not it.
Mm-hmm. And I think there is an appearance of a harshness that the word I don't think is harsh, but it's just, you recognize that the time is just not there. Like, that's just one of those, like, smack you right dead in your face. I don't have time to do this with you because I've recognized that the person who brought me into this world is no longer here. Mm-hmm. So the purpose is bigger than this. Like,
time and energy.
Energy is possible, and I don't even have the energy to deal with yours.
Yeah,
that's wrong.
Okay, well, at least I know. I still ain't alone.
I know for me, like, when my mom passed, I have no patience. Like, my patience, and maybe because things are still fresh.
Yeah.
But I don't have patience for anyone or anybody. And I mean, relationships. As you know what I'm talking about. Like, and unfortunately, like, I met a guy before all this happened. I met him back in April of last year. So the plan was, I'm just gonna date, because I've never been a dater. So I was like, I just had got out of a long relationship, took a couple of months off. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna date. I've never dated. Let me just date some guys and just whatever. And I get on a dating app, and I've never been on a dating app before.
Almost got me.
Okay, here we go. And the first guy that I talked to on the dating app, me and him end up just talking. I'm just the only person I'm talking to for the next like 5-6 months. And then everything happened with my mom, and he was there every single day, at the hospital, making cheesecakes, bringing it up for the cake. Y'all look. Like,
So good.
He's phenomenal, and just stuck by whatever I needed. You know, the day that she passed, took off work, and, you know, just all of that. But as the months went on, I just felt like for the first time, I didn't have to care. And it sounded so mean, because I had to sit down and have a conversation with him, because he's starting to really fall for me. And I couldn't, like, my emotion, or I don't know. And I had to sit down, and I was like, at this time of my life, I don't want to care for anybody. I was like, I just don't want to care. I've been taking care of everyone. And this is the first time my whole adult life that I can remember that I don't have to take care of anyone but me. And even though the relationship was easy and he didn't require much, it was still a relationship. And you still got to put stuff into a relationship, even if it's, I got to call you today. You know, maybe I don't want to call anybody today. You know, it's just little things that I just didn't want to have to deal with. And so I had to and I said it, and I was like, I know this sounds selfish in me. He was like, yeah, it does. And so like a couple of days afterwards, we had another conversation. I was able to articulate what I was trying to tell him, and he understood, because he lost his parents as well. And so he got it. And he was like, I know you just need your space. You got to find Jonique. And so that's where I am right now. But my patience, like, I just don't have it anymore. So
that's a good touch, Jonique. You girls experienced, like, after your mom, any relationship issues or dating or anything like right after that? Were you in relationships? Were they there? Are they still lingering around?
No.
I know we're kind of like going off the topic, but it really makes sense for it really makes sense for somebody who may be in a relationship right now.
Stef, you're first.
So Jonique went, so we're going backwards. You could go.
So yes, I was in a relationship at the time when my mom passed, and he was very supportive. And the same emotions, right? And so it was like a new strain on the relationship too, because we're now long distance, because I live in Michigan. I left New York to Michigan, transitioned with my mom. So there was space there, but those emotions, trying to figure it out for myself, and then still being in a relationship, we did a good job at that. The emotions came in, I think, in the transition of like things not feeling so good, is, like I said, with the expectations when certain days came around, like Mother's Day, and you want people to step in, check on you, be around, offer themselves, and they don't. Even the conversation, like the expectation of his mom and her not being there, and her and I not having that relationship, or her not feeling like, or she's sensing like she did not give off the energy that she wanted to have that kind of relationship.
Gotcha.
So those are the things that you think about when you're in a long-term relationship with someone and you experience a serious event in life. And it's like, how are you going to make it through? Let's see. Because that was the first time we experienced something so large in our relationship. And it was like, okay, how do you deal? And we were together a few years after that. We're not together now. And I think, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like, as much as you feel, I personally feel like I support people, and I was supportive to people, and they just did not offer that same support. You know, I lost my sister 2 years after my mom.
Mm.
So it's like a trauma, then here's another trauma, and you're managing a relationship, you're doing all of these things, and it's just like, you're experiencing these traumas with me. Okay. You know, like, I've really come to the point, and I'll talk about people's capacity. They just don't have the capacity because maybe they just don't understand. Mm-hmm. And you have to accept them for that and move on.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that's really good. The capacity portion, I think, and I think this a lot in my head. This might be the first time that I really said it out loud, but people won't know until they know for themselves. And I say it in my head because I feel like it's a little mean, or it's a little, you know, because I feel that I'm like, sometimes it goes through my head and I'm like, you're gonna know one day. And not because I want that for anybody, because the pain is continuous, the grief is continuous, but that's the only way that I can explain it, is that you'll know, or I hope that you will understand better when it happens to you, when your own parents, mom especially, is no longer here, because that's, for me, I think that so many people just don't get it, because it's just not happened to them, you know. I think there are some great, you know, people who can step in and be feelers, you know. Like, I feel like there have been situations where people have had other types of loss that I haven't experienced. And
right.
That person, like Keara said, but some people just don't have the capacity, don't understand it, and aren't willing to put in the work to get to what that looks like either.
That's a big thing too, wanting to put in the work. Yeah. That's what hits me a lot, is like, if you love me and if you say you are my friends or whatever it is, why don't you want to put the work in to support me or to show me that you support me? So that was big. Thank you.
Yeah. I was serial dating on the apps in all kinds of situations. As Keara sips her water.
Go ahead and sip mine too then.
Please. We already had a discussion about this.
But it was a healthy support system. She was communicating what was happening and we were supporting her. Okay.
I'd be like, hey, this is the info, this the social media, this the picture, this the license, you know, all of that. But I think that was kind of sort of part of like their, and when I say dating, I was just dating, right? Like, all right, let's go here, let's go there. It was really just too soon, but I think I was also trying to find a place to like have outlet of space, like kind of keep myself busy, right? Physically, mentally, talking to someone, you know, on the regular type of situation. I will say one of my exes that has been a very close friend to me for a very long time, like over a decade, was there. And I appreciate that. Was the only person of my two exes really that, you know, sent something, continually reached out, you know, and I really appreciated that. The other, because we weren't on speaking terms, I didn't even find out this until some months later that he knew that my mom had passed. And he chose not to say anything. And of course I confronted him like, wait, hold on a minute. Like, so you telling me you knew that she passed and you said nothing? And I'm over it now. But when it was happening, it blew me away. Because again, going back to the capacity and to how I am to others, my expectation is that you would do the same, you know, as I would do for you. And it just wasn't reciprocated at that time. But I think God knew that me dating for real, and being in a relationship at that time, aside from even like, you know, losing my mom, that I just wasn't ready. And to add, you know, to that at that time probably wasn't the best idea, because that's also, being honest, putting a lot of weight on someone, meeting someone new and having, you know, them to understand what this grief walk looks like for me. And, you know, you do want someone to understand, you know, the ebbs and flows of your emotions and to remember those dates, you know. And I don't expect everybody to remember them, but it would be nice, you know. It feels good when someone can, even if it's just a text message, hey, I know what today is, just checking on you. And it's appreciative.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that on that.
Yeah, I wasn't dating at the time. Again, around that time of 2008 and 9 was a lot of, like I said, Flavor of Love was heightened. The next year came in, I had to deal with I Love Money and doing all of that. And shoot, I wasn't in a relationship like that. So I was just dumped into work, dumped into a new persona. And I just lived. So I didn't have to deal with that. You know, I didn't have to deal, and I didn't, and it helped me too, because again, I didn't want to start the conversations on why. So, the why for me has always just been always in a way the reason why I didn't want to discuss about death, about none of that. And I think the next time I got into something was almost 2 years later, and I don't even think I told him, because again, I still wasn't comfortable explaining the why yet. So, and I think an ex knew about her, and I don't think I told him until maybe years later, because I was still in communication. The soul tie's gone though. You feel me? So he found it, and I told him. He was like the first guy I told, was one of my exes. And but yeah, I wasn't in it, so I didn't have to deal with that. But again, I was just focused on work, so nobody was important besides me just going to work. And it was all about Angie. It was all about me. Like, I made sure it was all about me, because that's all I had at the time. So
that's how I feel like I am now. Like, I just want it to be all about Jonique.
And that's okay. I think whatever that you have to do whatever you have to do to be able to cope and get to the next stage, right? Like, I don't believe in the stages of grief as it is.
No.
But like, because it's forever. The stages are forever, and they're all in different alignment.
Yes.
Right now, it's like Jonique is me, myself, and I. Hey, sing that tune until you feel like you want to shift it. Like, I think that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because it automatically jumps into self-love, self-preservate. Like it transfers for you to love yourself and help heal. And it makes, well, for me, right? It made me realize I can be with Angie. I'm okay with being with Angie, because Angie was there when nobody else was there. Me and her done got through so much. I love you know what I mean? Like, I don't mind my presence. We have been through it all just with me, myself, and I. Like, it actually blessed me in that way to have just dealt with that on myself alone, even though I wasn't expressing it out and about, and I had to put on my strength. So I had to put on my face as well in front of everybody, and even in front of you guys. When I lost my mom, like, I was fine, but at times I wasn't. You know what I mean? And that's how it goes. But it just, for me, it helped start a whole new journey of self-love, and allowing me to embrace me, myself, and I, when there's nobody there. And it works well for me. It prepared me for days after that and years later up until today. You know what I mean? So it kind of just worked all out. But speaking about the everlasting feeling, what would you guys tell someone who just lost their mom last month? If they say, does the feeling go away? Do you ever get over it? When does it get like less painful? Does it?
I don't think that it does. I know people who are maybe about 10 years older than me and lost this one person in particular. She lost her mom, I want to say, over 20, maybe close to 30 years ago. And it still cuts her really, really deep. And, you know, one would think, right, outside of this situation that, you know, it's been almost 3 decades, like, you know, you're older, you have your own kids, you know, that all of that would mean something, and it means nothing. Like, she still is like, I miss my mom. And I think when I think that sometimes, like, I'm kind of like getting past a certain hump, I be real right back in, like, oh yeah, this still hurt the same way that it did yesterday, the same way that it did on 8/15/15. Like, nothing has really changed but the year. It gets easier in the sense of being able to continue to wake up every day. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have hard moments and times where you're going to not want to get up out of the bed because you're just not feeling it. I'm grateful that those days are fewer. But I'm very adamant about just keeping myself grounded in my faith. Worship is really big for me in those, like, because it's easy to get yourself worked up into that rut and be like, I don't want to talk to nobody, including the people that, you know, are connected to me by blood. I don't want to talk to none of y'all. I don't want to see nobody. I want to go to work. You know, I don't want to do nothing. I don't even want to walk to get water. You know, like, you can get wrapped up in that. But I try to push through it because it's like, I don't know what else to do. That's the only way that I know how to cope, is to keep pushing. It would be really easy. Like, that's what's been carrying me is God present in this. Like, people have said to me before, like, oh my gosh, like, you seem so strong, you know, and I don't know if it's just the presence of other people who have grieved and they think about it in that manner. So they have, you know, an assumption that I should be looking, you know, downtrodden and, you know, just crying all the time. And trust me, I have those moments, right? You know, like, one of those things that I think never happened for me was like that, like, moment where you feel like you've lost it, and like that, like, bawling, crying, you out of your mind. Like, it never really happened. But I had like little like moments that kind of happened to basically break those all up. So I guess if you combine them all, like, you know, that TV moment, right? You know, where on television you see people falling out. Like, I thought that would be me, and it never happened. And I was waiting for it. Like, literally, I was like, oh, I know I'm going to, like, you know, just have that time that happens, and it just never came. But I think what I've learned in the last almost 5 years is that I have to do better with expressing her legacy and how that correlates with who I am as her child. Because I've been kind of just carrying through, just in general being a 30-something, right? Just trying to figure out and navigate. I'm sorry.
30-something. I'm with you, girl, with that. 30-something. Don't ask me who I am. 30-something.
What that looks like, you know, being, you know, in my 30s and, you know, single and all of that wrapped up in it. But the more that I, like, think back and have conversations with her sisters and her, you know, my grandmother and her friends, and even my sister, of just parenting styles, right? Or just views on certain things in general. I think that helps me kind of to push through a little bit more fluid. it's a day-by-day process. I tell people that all the time. I have a very close friend who lost their mom about 2 months ago. And, you know, I think the only thing that I can offer her is like, if you're having a great day on Monday, claps to you. I'm glad, you know, but if you're having a crappy day the next day, claps to you for like feeling like it's okay to like not want to, you know, get up sometimes, because the ebbs and flows are going to come.
Yep.
You're human, you know, temporarily here on this earth, and it's just going to happen. It's innate to feel. But you just have to, in my opinion, push past it in time. Like, don't let yourself lament forever. You know, give it those times and those moments. Do whatever self-care looks like to kind of push you through whatever that looks like. Whether it's passion projects, whether it's, you know, work, whether it's talking it out with someone. But it does, I think it gets easier as time goes, but it doesn't necessarily get better. The feeling is still there. I mean, I describe it as heartbroken. I don't think that that's something that will ever mend, but you kind of learn to live with it. It's a kind of push past it.
Yeah, that's good.
I think you learn how to cope better as time goes on. It's been over 10 years for me, right? Coming into 12 years. And some days are good, some days are bad. I feel like I'm back to when I found out, you know, like when I was right there. And I think it's also that certain things trigger you based off of your emotions. So my advice would be that you're going to get through it. You learn how to cope better, but your mom is forever with you. She is a figure that was not meant to be forgotten. So don't feel like, oh, I'm going to get to a certain point and I'm going to be like, this is okay, I'm good. She's not meant to be forgotten. So you're going to have to deal with the feelings that she's not physically here with you. So the coping will get better. Like Stephanie said, some days will be better. More times you're ready to get out to bed and other days not. And that's okay, because you're going to go through these ebbs and flows of emotion. The years and the memories that you've had cannot be wiped away in a year or even 10 years or whatever amount of time. Like, don't try to put time on it in terms of your grieving. Don't try to push yourself past emotions. It's better to deal with them. So deal with the emotions as they come and know that you're gonna make it through.
Yeah.
For me, it's been 6 or 7 months. It doesn't, and I don't know if it just hasn't hit me yet, but it doesn't feel like she's gone. Like, it feels like she's on vacation. It feels like, you know, like, and maybe it's the Christian of me thinking like, she's not really gone, you know, I'm gonna see her again, you know, so maybe it's that. But it doesn't feel like she is gone. And even though I know it, it's just weird. Like, I'm real big into music, so like, you know, like I'll hear a song and it might trigger. I know 11:11 has like a spiritual meaning.
Yeah.
See that all the time. Cardinals, I see those all the time. So it's like, I don't know if it's signs, you know, just to say like, I am still here. But even though I'm shedding tears, it still doesn't feel real. Like, it really does not. And I don't know if it ever changes, you know. I know when she passed, you know, my siblings were like, oh, I had a dream of mommy. Mommy came to me in my dreams. You know, she came and I wasn't having dreams. So I'm like, why is she coming to me? Like, you know, why isn't she coming to see me? And then I was like, well, one, I think it's like, I know where she is. She partying it up. So I don't want to bother her. Like, I want her to be happy. And then recently I had a dream and she didn't say anything. But it was just her. And I saw her sitting there and I was like, Mommy. And she turned and she looked at me and she looked so pretty. And she just smiled. It was kind of like I'm good. You know, there was no words that had to be said. And I don't know. It's just so many, I mean, I guess because it's still so fresh. So it's so many different emotions. Like y'all said, like 1 minute is you're fine, you're great, you know. And then the next is like, you know, I had to experience my first Mother's Day. And I thought I was going to be okay, but it's just something was not right. It was just like something was missing, you know, because we have a tradition that we do every year and not being able to do it, it was just different. And I was just in a funk. I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want anybody to talk to me. And so I'm still getting to learn those different still, I mean, I hear other people saying it, you know, I hear people say, yeah, a song come on and I'll just, you know, bust out crying or whatever the case may be. But I don't know, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to navigate my emotions. And yeah, like some days are great, some days just suck. So, sorry.
No, it's no sorry over here, girl. No sorry. Oh, I just had a blank just now. Oh my God.
Like, one thing you said real quick is so interesting. I had a lot of family members saying that my mom was coming to them in dreams, and it was to the point of festivity. I'm like, how's she coming to y'all? Help me understand. Like, how? Like, my sister, I know she had several. She's like, oh yeah, we were in her closet. She told me what to keep, what to give away. And I'm like, really? Like, that detail, right? You know, my grandmother, oh yeah, she was standing right here. She was at the third. My aunt, and I'm sitting here like, I mean, I literally, still to this day, I pray to God, like, why has this woman not? I had one dream, and she was sitting kind of high on, like, basically like a high boy table, chairs away from me, and she didn't speak, but she looked fine to my recollection. And that's so crazy that you shared that, because that was the only, you know, dream that I had. And I guess I find a little bit of solace in knowing that she understands that I'm at peace with what happened. And I know, you know, versus maybe others who needed her more
Closure. Yeah.
their, you know, dreams and stuff, like, to kind of get, I still want her in my dreams, you know, like, selfishly, but that was like something that was really interesting to me.
Mm. And that's how I felt too. That's how I felt. I felt like, because I was at peace, I was at like a peace. Like, I was there when she transitioned. Like I was, like, there was no unfinished business or maybe, like, I was fine. Like, yeah. I was good.
Yeah.
One else still had like some kind of regret or something. And so, yeah.
I don't know as much Jonique, but do you, Angie and Keara, y'all can tell me, do y'all feel like Groundhog Day sometimes? Like, like the mindset will be like, oh, my mom died. Like sometimes I say that in my head every day. Like it's like a light bulb every day to me. Like, and this has been going on for 5 years. Like, not that I forgot, but it's like an awareness light bulb to be like, oh yeah, she really is not here. Like, and it still happens.
Yeah.
For me, no.
I do.
I know she's gone and she's been gone. And I guess because I've seen her in different phases. You know what I mean? Like she was like, I know she's gone. Like, you know, I don't even have a second guess of, is she at the store? Is she?
No, and it's not even that. It's just the idea, like, oh, she died. Like every day, it's like a reminder. Like again, like I don't know, something just clicks in my head, and it's like I just equate it to Groundhog Day. It's like almost like the shooting of the grief of it, like shoots me. Like it's almost like a hey, just as a reminder.
This is a reminder. Yeah, I know exactly what you
like, but it's weird when it hits me. It's like, oh, again, okay, I didn't forget, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess for me it's a little different. For me, when I have my waves, it's because I just miss her, right? So I don't even get a reminder of like, dang, like my mom is gone. You know what I mean? I want to talk to her today. Like I got something to say. Like I want her to be here today. I want us to go to the beach today. I want us to go do this today. Like, and that's where my emotion starts to come in because I want her to be on this couch with me today. I want her to talk. I want her to hear what I got to say. I think that's kind of my waves. And when you were talking about dreams, like I just had a dream about my mom the other day. I have them sporadically. Some of them are very vivid. Some of them are very just basic. I could just have her in there just being herself and I'm just watching. You know what I mean? I remember one Mother's Day, the year after I would never forget 2011 Mother's Day. Mother's Day. I had the dream Mother's Day Eve. So when I woke up on Mother's Day, I got to think about the dream the entire day. It was so vivid to where we went out and ate.
Wow.
Had drinks together. We had a full day.
Wow.
And I remember because it was I was at the time I had just got back to Myammee because I opened up my hair salon and I haven't physically have moved yet. So I was staying with my godmother. And I remember I was at her house and I probably stayed with her for like maybe like 2 months or something like that. And I just woke. I remember the night of, I was talking to my godmother that night. I remember we was in her den. It was just vivid. And then I went to sleep and me and my mom, we had conversation. We cheered drinks, like we ate, like she talked to me and I talked back to her, like we had conversation. Like it was so amazing to wake up Mother's Day 2011 and to say I had a full Mother's Day already. And that had been, like 3 years later?
Wow.
So for me, May is always like a big, crazy, her birthday too, but May, which her birthday is in October, May is crazy because May is when she got into the hospital, May is when she passed away, and May was the funeral. And also May is Mother's Day. You know what I mean? So May is just a mess for me every year. And as the years are going by, I thought it would get better. I thought it would get better as the years go by, and I'm starting to realize it's not. Only because I'm getting older, and I want to hear from her, and I want her guidance, and I want to hear what she has to say about something, and I just want to just talk to her. And I think, not that it's getting worse, but it is not going away. I think the older you get, even when I become a mom, when I get married, I'm going to still feel it. I'm like, dang, I want her at my wedding. I want her to be here at my birth, at my kids. I want her to see this man that I have chosen to be my husband. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to, I think the more that we grow and the more that we experience new things and new levels on ourselves, for me, it's just getting there. and it is not going away. And I think the great thing about being able to deal with it amongst myself and not depend on anybody to be there for me and pat me on the back is because when there's days when I don't know how to get out of that funk of just crying and want her to talk to her, I know how to go back and go through the files and figure out how to pull myself out. You know, because I have people that are in relationships and that are in marriages, and they have to deal with that. And even though that there's somebody there who loves you and married you, you still got to find it within yourself to get up, to go past, to still live, no matter if you have kids, no matter if you have that man there, no matter if you still have your mom and daddy, or whatever you have, you still have to physically do it yourself. So I think when she passed away and me dealing with it by myself has helped me preserve myself, to pull myself out of it, even though I do have funks of days, and I have them all the time lately. But then again, it's just a season that I'm in personally as an adult. So to say to everybody out there, it's not going away. I'm 12 years in, 12th Mother's Day. And like I said from the beginning of this video, it feels like 3-4 years ago. Not even, you know, so it's never going to go away. Steve Kerr, we were talking about this when we was just talking amongst ourselves. Steve Kerr on the Jordan documentary. Yeah. Steve Kerr is just old. He just looked extra old. When I was watching The Last Dance, he looks extra old.
Sorry, Steve Kerr.
I'm sorry. You're such a sweetheart. Okay. He looks so old. But when that man was talking about his dad on film, on the documentary, episode 10, I was just like, Steve Kerr got to be in his 60s or 70s. And that man, he's a man.
Yeah.
He choked up. He was teary. He cried just talking about the memory of his dad. So it just made me realize, even just not too long ago, watching the documentary, that it would never go away. Because I don't hear anybody else talking about death as an older person. So I don't hear my dad talking about how he felt about losing his mom. You know what I mean? Or not knowing his dad, you know, because I don't have any granddads. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't hear about those stories of other people losing their mom. Everybody I kind of know still got their mom. And they dad. You know, older is what I'm saying. And the ones who don't, they don't discuss it with me. So I can only pull it on a doggone show like that. So to sum it up, it ain't going away. You just got to figure out how to deal with it, how to go. Denial is always going to be there. It's going to, like Jonique said, some days you're going to be feeling like it's nothing. Like life is just life. Like either she's on vacation or just life is just life. You're not even thinking about a mom. You just living life. And it's just going to pass you by. But then some days you just be sitting there and you could be out and about. A song can come on. You could be out and about and boom. So.
Oh, I was going to touch on the dreams aspect. My mom comes to me, child. I wouldn't say a lot, but
enough.
I always pay attention when my mom comes in dreams because it's like something giving me foresight. She's very clear. And it's not always like, listen, don't go down that street. It's like we're experiencing something and like the symbolism in the dream. But because she's there, it makes me pay attention more. And it makes me cry that it makes me cry that she's still showing up. Like, that's how I know, like, she's not leaving me. So I am grateful for that she still shows up in my dream like, girl, no.
Yes.
Like, absolutely not. And it's sometimes stuff that I don't even know is coming. And it sometimes does not make sense. And then when it comes, I'm like, I saw this. Or you said it. And I like heed more now to the dream. So I'm grateful for that. That she shows that she's still with me, like, and still protecting me as a mother. the advice that we're looking for those like maternal figures, like she's still showing up in that to tell me like, I'm here. So
That's
I'm
dope.
grateful.
That's amazing. I have 2 more points we're gonna talk about, and then we'll wrap it up. One of the point is Steph kind of like touched on it, was expressing your legacy, expressing your mom legacy through you and who you are, just as you. What is it that you guys would like to express your mom's legacy in a way of maybe a service, or a way of just other people, maybe a way within your families, or outside of your families, either or? Like, what are some things about your mom that you want to just express to the world? Or again, like I said, it could just be amongst your family that you've just been thinking about. Maybe you have not done it yet, but it is in the back of your brain. Like, you know what? I would love to do this. She would love that I did that. So
I think over the last 5 years, when it comes to legacy, I've been looking for something tangible. But I think the way in which I treat people and how I am of service mirrors the way that she lived her life, especially when it comes to family. All I remember growing up in our 2-bedroom apartment is that we were that family house. Everybody came over there for everything. I don't remember going to other family members' homes often, but like we were that house, right? You know what I'm saying? Even like my family members who had houses and we had an apartment, like everybody would cram in my mother's apartment, and she would just be that given person, whether it's like, you know, passing $20 bills to all the little kids or something like that. I remember stuff like that, you know, just being helpful always, like just initiating things when other people weren't, because, you know, some people just are not, you know, as giving. And I think one thing I've learned from her is to like not necessarily look for something in return, like ever, because the more you give, like you'll never be without, like literally never, ever, 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 ever. And she was a huge giver. Like, I just remember her going above and beyond for people that she probably didn't have to. Even when it came down to some of her relationships, you know, work relationships, she like was a very good friend to a lot of people. Like I remember looking, you know, at some of the comments on like one of the guest books for the funeral parlor or whatever the case may be. And I didn't know these people. And there weren't many, you know, because I don't know if people like knew to do it. But for some, like the things that they said about her, I was just like, wow. Like, and she didn't know them like that. Like, I know, like, my mother didn't live in Florida that long, but, you know, as long as she did live there, like, everybody had nothing but nice things to say, you know, and not because, like, oh, she passed and then you have something nice to say, but she lived a life that reflected service. So I think I'm coming into understanding that being a giver is what I'm supposed to do and just expound on that, which is important. And also what this has taught me to continue her legacy is to piggyback on the earlier point of having those conversations. I don't really remember us having a lot of these types of conversations prior. So that's something that I want to just be a lot more focused on, and sharing that with people. Like, again, not even if your mom is sick or whatever the case may be, but like just having those types of conversations with your children so that they're aware and understand that you're not going to always be here. So it's just important to have them. So that's what I want to leave.
I think for me, I had to come to the understanding. My mom was a person that always made sure that people knew themselves, like to be confident in yourself. What is your thing? What do you want to be? It, you know, even amongst my sisters and I, it wasn't everybody had to do the same thing. As long as you were confident about what you were doing and you had a passion about it, like that's what you do, that's what you focus on. So for me, when I think about the legacy component, it's more of what do I believe that I am good at that I want to give back. So one important thing for me was to finish school, because that was a conversation we had before she passed away. You know, like I made this transition, so I had to make sure that I saw that through. So I did that. Another thing was I actually started my own company, and something that I was passionate about. And I feel like me starting that company and giving back to youth and young adults through my workshops and speaking is me carrying on that legacy of being a woman and being able to find your way to give back to your community. Everybody doesn't have to do the same thing. I don't have to do the same thing my mom did, but as long as I am sure of who I am and carrying our name and who she is, I know that she's proud. So I feel like we don't have to emulate, or we don't have to do the same exact things that our moms did for them to be proud. We have to find who we are, and we already carry those characteristics of our mom. We already carry those things. It's now taking it and putting it into your personalized form to give back. And I feel like I'm doing that. And I'm grateful for that. So yeah, find what you're passionate about and make it your own, because you're going to have your own legacy, not your mom's legacy, but your own. Like I have to carry Keara's legacy. What does that look like for me? And I think that will always make your mom proud.
That's good. I think for me, when my mom passed, I started, instead of flowers, I started the cancer, you know, so people can donate to cancer research. And I think I'm very passionate of the whole cancer research thing because my mom went through it for so long. So it's something I want to do in that field or that area, if it's volunteer my time, because just sitting in, you know, some of the treatment areas and watching people just there by themselves, like I couldn't imagine just being there by myself and not having someone there. It's just to talk or just, you know, whatever the case may be. I know they have the candy stripers that just come around and, you know, hand out the snacks or, you know, just something like that I wouldn't mind being a part of. I know Lyft, either Lyft or Uber, I think it's Lyft, they have a service where people that can't make it to their treatments, you can volunteer and drive people back and forth to their treatments. I know my mom had to use that a couple of times. So just like things of that nature. When it comes to family, I definitely want to continue to instill God into my family, into my siblings. Because that's one thing that my mom taught me, is just watching her faith, you know, watching how much trust and how much she put into God. And no matter what was going on in her life, it was always the foundation was him. And I want to put that in my siblings, especially, like, you know, I'm constantly talking to them, you know, when they're having troubles or, you know, they're having a bad day or whatever the situation is. I'm like, well, have you gone to God first? You know, because worrying is not going to solve it. You know, it's not going to do anything. And the week after my mom died, we went to church, and my sister ended up joining the church. So it's just little, you know, just the little steps of that, because I know if I did not have my faith, and I know we can all agree on that. You know,
Baby.
If you don't have that, like, I don't see how people can do it, because that was the only thing that was kind of like holding me from not completely having a mental breakdown, was because I knew he was in control. You know, there are no mistakes. You know, God has his hand on everything. And so that was what was like, okay, his will is done, you know? And so that's something that I want to definitely instill into my family.
For me, yes, I do HIV advocacy, and I created a platform to talk about the education around HIV advocacy, to have conversations for the family members who have family members who are HIV positive still to this day and still alive, to have an outlet for them to discuss that, and have a DM for them to message me about, and have an email for them to message me about. That has been amazing, because that's exactly what my mom was. And I didn't think I was going to go into this. I remember I was, I had my salon, and, I had my own little thing going on. I kind of just fell into it because I just got sick of keeping my mouth shut. I was just sick of it. Like, and I don't know when was the light bulb for me to say, this is the time. I can't even remember that. But I was just tired of just keeping my mouth shut. And that was the opposite of my mom. And I think it kind of just made me realize, like, your mom raised you to be a woman, to not be afraid of who you are, to tell the world who you are. And I was like that. Like, I remember being always like that. College, when I met Stef, when I met Jonique in Atlanta, like, I felt like I was always not afraid to voice how I feel, because that's how my mom was. And it just became a part of me, just picking that up from her. So doing what I do now in HIV work, and it's kind of transitioning now from me doing, well, not even transitioning, it's adding on for me to do and be a voice for other organizations as well, and being a voice for other people, and being a voice, and guess what, in other arenas, doing something like this, being a voice for people who has lost their mom, being a voice for people who are single, not married, without kids, being a voice of people who love God, who trust God, who have faith in God, who depend on God. You know what I mean? Like, but in the way that it's just part of me and it's out of my blood, to where I do it because it's just part of me now to just speak, just tell the world how you feel about it. Don't be afraid of yourself. Don't be afraid of your voice. Don't be afraid of that. And that's what my mom stood for. She was just bold. The way she said it was how she said it, but it caught on to people and it stuck. It made them realize, and it made them stick with them, to keep that in the back of their head, to change their perspectives about something. To this day, I walk in front of these adolescents that she was working with in University of Miami Hospital. They were like 7, 8, 10 years old. They are now in their late 20s, 30s, have kids. You know what I mean? And to hear what when they tell me, if it was not for your mother, grown people as well, if it was not for your mother, and that sticks with me, not to kind of repeat what she did, but to stick with me, to say, Angela, use your voice, because you don't know if it's going to be one thing you said to somebody. You don't know if it's one thing that you did to somebody. You don't know if that 10 years from now, they're going to be like, man, I appreciate Angela for just giving me that one little piece of nugget. Like, that helped me live the rest of my life. And I feel like that's part of my purpose. And I have to continue doing it now that I have a voice. You guys, I didn't have a voice for a long time. Even though I had a voice, because I always had a voice. But to have a voice for a purpose, and a voice for people who just don't want to say something, or people who are afraid to say something, for people who just, you know what I mean? Like, it's a voice in a different way. So that's what I think she has instilled in me for a legacy. And I look forward to everything else I have to do within doing a legacy in my community, amongst my friends. Gotta keep working with my family, and yeah, and just not being afraid of who I am, and not being afraid of my voice and my opinion. That's that. Don't ever be afraid of who you are. That's the main thing she stood for. She didn't care how Nobody looked at her or how she talked, the way she walked, the way she moved her hair, her mannerisms. She didn't care. Like, that was her. She lived her truth. And that was another thing too. Like, I want to live my truth. Like, this is me. This is my authentic self. And that's it. I don't want to be like nobody else. Like, I want to just be me. And that's what she stood for too. She was her authentic self. She didn't put on for nobody. And that's what made her her. And I just want to make sure I continue being me. And that's it. And no matter what I touch, no matter what project I touch, I just want to be me in it. And that's it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, you guys, was, what would your mothers tell you? What would you think your mom would say? If you was to make a sentence, or maybe it's a 2 sentence, maybe it's 3 sentence, but it has to involve you being, one day being a wife, one day being a mom, where you are today. What do you think she would tell you, you know, like today, how does she feel? And like I said, being a mom, or just being just you. It doesn't have to be a man or kids involved, but if you want to add that into it, what do you think she would tell you today?
I think she would say many of the things that she always said. I appreciate that she was constant with a couple of phrases, shall I say. She always spoke to me about the importance of just being true. You know, I think at one point in time, like any parent, trying to figure out, like, why don't you listen? Like, you do everything opposite from what I tell you to do. But I think when she came to the realization that I'm just a different kind of kid, like, she truly embraced that. And that's something that she said to me often, like, you know, you have your own way of doing things and they work out for you. So you keep doing that. Another thing she said in regards to relationships that she said all the time was, make sure that whoever the person is, that you like them. She said, you know, love has its ebbs and flows, but she was like, if you don't like them, you don't like to be around that person, it's not going to work. Like, because it's about their character, you know, and the integrity, and, you know, and look at their parents. She always said that. Look at the parents and their relationship or lack thereof. Like, make sure that's something that, you know, you put into account. And one of the last things that she said to me, and I will take that a step further, and she whispered it in my ear before going into surgery, was to make sure that my nephews got into church. And I know that that was also just a revelation of making sure that relationship with God is instilled in all of our lineage. So I took that to mean my nephews, my children's children, and moving forward. Because I know that when she passed away, she was saved, she was a believer, and that's something that I think she would definitely want me to carry. And that the last thing that I know she would say, which she always said to me, is like, when you are tired, you will change. So when it came to so many different things, like, I would be, you know, venting or complaining to her about something, and she'd be like, okay, well, when you're tired enough of whatever that is, you will make the change. And you did. And it was that simple. And like, things happen all the time, and I'm like, yeah, like when you're fed up, basically, you'll be able to push past it. Like, and I'd be like, but I am. She's like, no, you're not fed up enough yet. And so those are some things I could think
about. One thing my mom used to always say, I remember one day, my sister and I came home, and she had written this phrase out for both of us and put it over our beds. And I was probably in elementary school, maybe junior high school. And I was like, okay, lady, like, but it's been something that I've carried on, and it's plan your work and work your plan. And my mom has always been a person that is organized, strategic about things in life. What you want, you're gonna put that work in, but what does that work actually look like? And that's something that's important to me. Like, figure it out. Like, you say you want X, what is the plan for you to get from here to X? So that's something important that I believe she would still continue to say to me. Another thing with regards to relationships, you know, not to me specifically, but what she would say in general is like, there is a teacup for every saucer. So you may feel like right now I don't have that person, but God has that person for you. And you will find that person that will be your person, like you sit like a teacup and a saucer perfectly. And I hold on to that, you know, that I trust that God has a person for me and we will be like a teacup and saucer. And another thing, you know, we talked about church. We grew up in church. And she would probably say it, but one thing I learned, you learn a lot from watching a person. A person can say things, but you learn by their actions. And my mom's actions when it came to church, faith, being active in church, what that actually looked like, not just a Sunday believer, but a day-to-day believer. So I think she would just continue to reiterate the importance of having a relationship with God, not even the religion, a relationship with God, because that is something that is going to carry you through. That is something that continues to give you strength. The grace, the mercy that carries along with that, that is something that is very important. So you have to continue to keep that relationship with God.
That's good.
I think my mom would say two things she normally said. One, whatever you do, make sure God is in it. And does what, you know, work, relationship, family, cooking, whatever you do, make sure God is in the center of it. Because if he's not, then you don't have that foundation. And then the other thing is always, when you leave the house, make sure you look good, because you never know who you're going to see.
Oh my God. And make sure your panties doesn't have holes in it.
That's right. That's right.
You don't know if you got to get on the emergency.
That's it. Same. Yeah.
That's what my grandma would tell me, child. Make sure your panties ain't got no holes, because you don't know if you're gonna have to get in the ambulance and they gotta cut you, you know. Oh, girl.
That's so funny that they always say that. Like, I'm gonna tell my kids the same thing. So,
to me, I think my mom would just continue telling me, you know, keep enjoying the moments. Enjoy life in the moment. Enjoy the moments. Tomorrow is not promised. And you've seen that with me. You've seen that with your brothers. Tomorrow is not promised. Enjoy your life. Enjoy each moment. Of course, have a relationship with God is the main thing. Religion is nowhere to be even communicated about. It's about the relationship. You know what I mean? I've seen that with her. I've seen her have a relationship with God. I've seen her not judge herself about her actions, that the religious part can come in and tell you what you should not do. I've seen my mom have a relationship with God, and she still accepted herself. So she would tell me the same thing. Like I was a little, when I got in college, she realized like I was her. Like we would get into arguments sometimes or disagreements. And she'll just be, one day she was just like, am I talking to myself? Girl, yes. You know, because she was like that too. And I didn't even know until after she passed away that I had so much of her in me, and I didn't even realize it. But she would just tell me that when it comes to men, y'all already know how I am. I just took some of that from her too. Like, if he don't love you for you, If you can't be you, if you have to put on this mask for him, you don't need him. If he can't love you for your authentic self, because you have to accept your authentic self anyway. Like she would tell me, like you're not finna put on, well, she used some other words. You're not finna put on for no dude. You're not finna have to do A, B, C, D, and E to keep him. You be you and you love him, but don't become somebody that you're not. To have no man and not have a piece of man, because you need a man, not no piece of man. You know how the saying. There's a saying that's like, I'd rather have a piece of man than no man. No, my mom.
Okay, who?
I'm not even finna go there right now. But there's a saying. Maybe it's only down here in Miami. I don't know. I'd rather have a piece of man than no man. But how Anna was, beep that beep. My mom didn't care. Like that was her. Like she was okay with it too. Like this is me. God loves me, and I don't care what y'all think. You know what I mean? Like that's how my mom was. God loves me, and I don't care what you think. And I kind of took that. I took that from her. So I know she would tell me the same thing. Keep being you. Just enjoy the moments. Enjoy life. Life is so short. Just don't take it so serious. Because some days I do take it serious. Some days I'm so focused about, you know what I mean? The check marks of life, the check marks of my age, the check marks of where I'm supposed to be. But my mom wasn't like that. She would tell me, like, listen, like, chill, enjoy, like, what's happening right now. Be grateful. Which I just try to embody that all the time. Just try to keep that in mind. Yeah, and with the family part, I learned that from her too.
We keep working on that.
Yeah, we gotta keep working on that. You know what I mean?
On that one.
You gotta keep working on that, because again, my mom, it's crazy because I felt like, yes, we had family, but I felt like she had better friends than family. Like she had her brothers. And again, it goes back to HIV, and it is what it is. She just didn't really have the family support like you know what I mean? Like, yes, we had to go meet cousins like on Christmas. I was with her for Christmas. My dad's family was Thanksgiving. So I'll split on holidays. When we go for Christmas, like, okay, we see him for Christmas, but the rest of the year maybe here and there. But it wasn't really, it was just her, God, me, her job, her family, and her work. You know, so the family part, only thing I remember, only thing I could think she would tell me is just be yourself even in front of them. Because she was just her. She didn't, if she had to leave a function, she would leave. So trying to fix that. I don't want it to be a generational thing with me as well, but it looks like it's kind of like borderline, but I still want to fix it too. You know, with God, I know everything is possible. My job now is to try to communicate God and Jesus with my family and let them just sit back and just witness it. And when they're ready, they could come talk to me. So my job is just to show with action versus words. And I think she'll be happy with that. She'll be happy that I have my relationship with God, that God is my everything, like he was with her. And that I have to just show my actions amongst my family when they're ready, because they see me. So when they're ready to talk about it, and I can only force so much, because my family's not a big religious family either. So religious, not a big believer of a family. They understand God, but they're not too deep when it comes to Jesus and what it you know. So that's something that's like a whole different ball game I have to get through anyway. But yeah, I think she would just be happy, and she'd just tell me to be me and enjoy life. Take it by the moment, take it by the day. So, and don't be afraid to speak up, even with that man or them kids, because she used to speak up to me, child, all the time. You know, she ain't hide. Have your mom ever hid things from you, or you think? Cause my mom didn't hide nothing from me, even when it was like
her health stuff. Sometimes she wouldn't tell me everything.
Yeah, like I don't. For the most part, anything I asked, she would, you know,
Mm-hmm.
allow me to be privy of whatever it was. But she definitely hid / protected. I think my sister and I, from how sick she was, because the transition of how she went so quickly, and it was only in a year's time from diagnosis to passing, that I now know, because I think you said something, you know, touched on earlier, Angie, of how you felt like, you know, you wish you would have been there more present. And I struggle with that sometimes as well, but she didn't let on. Like, she really put on that she was more well than she was the months leading up to her passing. And I just realized that it was because she wanted my sister to focus on her family, her job. She wanted me to focus on being new in DC, working, you know, like that was more important than me, like us laboring over her. So that was probably the only time I think that she hid, you know, how sick she was.
Mm.
No, I don't think my mom ever hid. We had a very open relationship. My parents are very involved, always have been. So even my family is very involved. My mom is one of 7, and I have a large family. My maternal family is large, and we were very involved in each other's lives. Like, we spent weekends together. Like, I was always in Brooklyn. You know, I wanted to be with my friends, but I was with my family. So being around family and experiencing things, even as a child, and you realize, like, as an adult, like, oh, that's what was happening. But it wasn't like somebody was trying to hide it from us. It was like a dynamic of the situation. And it was just like, you're exposed to it. Somebody tells you, this is not what you do. You might have saw this, but this is not what you do. And that's what it is. So, no, I don't think anything was hidden. It was more about being able to communicate. And it always goes back to what they said, when everybody leaves, we are here. And that was like what was taught in my house. You know, it was 5 of us. We weren't even really allowed to, not really, we were not allowed to ask anybody for anything. My grandmother, my aunts, none of that. So whatever you needed was in your house. And that's how we functioned. You know, you communicate in this house. So, yeah.
No, I think the only thing, and I wouldn't even really say hidden, she just wasn't forthcoming right away, especially with her health stuff. But it got to a point where I just knew when something was going on or she found out something. I just knew by just, it was something that I sensed. So I would ask, and I would keep asking until she would finally tell me. But luckily, her and I, there was things in her past that I didn't know about. And I want to say earlier last year, her and I just sat down and we just talked for like a couple of hours. And it was just talking about just stuff, you know, like why my parents didn't end up together and like just things that I just never knew. So that was good to know, you know, just finding out little things like that.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We had a great discussion, some great topics, some great little tidbits. We hope you guys learned something from this. We hope you got touched by something. We hope that you don't feel alone in whatever arena that you probably felt. And hopefully you can like resonate with something that we said today. That was really the main thing. Ladies, do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to just add to this at this point to anybody that's watching?
You're going to make it.
Yeah. I mean, if you have any questions or anything like that, or, you know, you just need to vent or whatever, you can definitely hit me up on my Instagram at miss.jonique. I'm not here.
As difficult, as tough, as unfair as it feels, Like, your life is not over when this happens. It's gonna feel that way, but it's not.
And I offer the same, like Jonique said, if anybody needs an outlet of a person, you may not even know me, but if you need a listening ear, I will offer up myself as well. Mine is Core Values at KOR Values, VALUES.
Oh, look at this. Look at y'all. Look at y'all. Come on now with the assistance. DM me. You know what I mean?
Like DM me about don't DM me about
Yeah, because we don't know whose story or how, maybe all of us, maybe it's one particular person that you just really felt like, man, that is me. You know what I mean? Like, how do you feel like this happened to me with, like, you know, whatever it is, reach out, say something, you know, you don't have to deal with it all alone. You have something, you know what I mean? So thank you all for watching this entire video. We appreciate you guys. And again, if there's any extras, something that maybe we missed out on, comment below, say something. Maybe we'll come back for a question or two. Whatever you guys may need, if you have not reached us, out to one of us or all of us about something that you have going on with your moms. So thank you guys for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming to Myammee TV. And until the next episode, you guys, see you then. Bye.